and I was super nervous. Kind of like now, but not as
Oh,
much.
yeah. So Kelly said you did another podcast.
Yeah, just one.
What'd you do it on?
It was on, so she has a podcast called Menopausabilities. She's a nurse.
Menopausabilities.
Yes. Yeah.
That's fucking awesome.
Right.
That's awesome.
She's a nurse practitioner. She's retired now, but they just, and it's WTF, Women Talking Frankly. And they talk about, mostly it's for menopausal or perimenopausal women, but she also just wants like some real basics on fitness. So she had a lot of questions of like literally, like, you're in group fitness, where would you start if you've never stepped foot in a gym? Like, how do you get people to do that? And then she also is like, everybody wants the formula. So how many days, how many times, what intensity? And like,
That's tough.
She
What's
kept
the,
coming
what's
so
the
different.
prescription?
right.
It's so different from everybody.
Yeah. But we got to, I mean, it's storytelling really, because, you know, we talked about fitness before and after my pregnancies. We talked about when I got into fitness. We talked about my perimenopausal state in fitness. And so, yeah. But
I
she's
think,
great.
What's fabulous right now, or fascinating, we kind of talked about the other day, was about women cycling, like women's cycles.
Oh, yeah.
And fitness. How that's not even like
It's not even a thing anymore. Now it's part of the protocol.
It's part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Super
how all of the information we have about fitness is mainly revolved around men.
Yeah.
And
Except for the last about 5 to 7 years.
Yeah. It's all pretty new.
And a friend of mine went to a week-long clinic just on, she's in CrossFit and just training women and trying to figure out like where they are in their cycle so that they can peak, you know, according to what their hormones are.
Yeah, if they
it's like teams, right? Like women teams, like training, trying to get everybody on the same cycle.
Yeah. Well, like my daughter tore her ACL. She ruptured her ACL. And I knew that you're more prone to it right before your period because of your hormone fluctuations.
Imbalance, the tension in the tendons.
Exactly.
That's hard to say.
Tension
in the tendons.
Yeah. And then they were saying, like, her PT was like, yeah, if you could just, like you said, like get your teams, the national team on a cycle, then you would probably be able to train accordingly and not have so many injuries. Yeah. Because she listed she knew the number of how many ACL tears there were on the national team. It was like, it's hard to control.
It's crazy.
It'd be nice if on the XY side of that equation, they actually looked at that shit, because guys cycle too.
Yeah.
It's just
Right.
that we're not like
Right.
as attuned to it, because guys aren't supposed to talk about emotions, and you know, like,
Right.
you don't know me very well. That's not been ever my problem.
Yeah. I'm gathering.
Yeah.
I'm gathering.
It's,
Yeah.
You know, Ryan and I, we, you know, this is as much therapy in here as it is anything else, but it is. It's like you can feel it. It's like, I think it's pretty cool that they've taken the stigma away from, and just to put it bluntly, the female period.
Yeah.
And said, hey, no, wait, this is an advantage, because we know where your hormone cycle is. And if you can dial it in, like you're saying, to where it's like timing, you can train so much more optimally. I had a couple people like a long time ago that hadn't had kids, and they were freaked out. They're like, oh, I'm going to lose my body. I'm like, no. It's going to be so much easier after, because you've got all this natural hormone now that's going to be post-baby, where you can get jacked. And it's going to be super cool. It's going to be easy to put on muscle mass. Other things are going to be a little bit harder, more difficult, but you're going to be able to put on way more muscle mass, because your natural testosterone is going to be higher, because you had a baby and made a life in your tummy. And they didn't believe me. And then it was like afterwards, like, well, you know, Mindy. Yeah. Mindy was one of them. She's like, oh, this is so much easier. Yeah. Like, I mean, some things are harder, but it's like, it's this like, if it's why guys go on steroids. It's like, because if you can get that enhanced boost, some things are a lot easier to do than others.
Yeah.
So I'm always, especially in the last few years, and having a daughter, and being married to my wife, and just like the kind of the female. The female messaging has shifted towards strength, superheroes, badass. Yeah. Not skinny, model, stay in the kitchen.
Which, hallelujah to that.
I know.
Like,
yeah,
raise your
I
hands
know.
up, like,
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, because okay, this is kind of how these things start.
Okay.
We already kind of started, so we should probably
it's on.
So we should probably say who you guys, or you should probably say who you are, or we can do the fun game where she introduces you and you introduce her, and we go from there.
Except I don't know your first step into this industry.
Oh, you don't?
I should know.
Interesting.
Or I do know and I forgot, which is entirely
that's
possible.
fair. 'Cause how many kids do you have? Two, and you have three?
Three.
Right. All girls.
All girls.
Plus you're married to Ryan.
Plus I'm married
so
to
that's
Ryan.
like having two more.
Right.
A giant child.
Giant.
My wife would say the same thing. She has 4 children.
It depends on
plus
what
2 when
day.
I'm home.
Yeah. And what part of the cycle he's on.
What part of the band?
There you go.
The band string.
That's right.
I know.
I mean, it could
I
be
know.
that.
It's like sometimes he comes in, we get a good lift. Sometimes he needs a hug. It's like, we're good,
does.
dude. Either
I
way.
know.
Or we just eat. It's fantastic. But so you got 2 kids. You've got 4.
Three.
And
Wow.
3.
3 plus
My
mine.
wife has 4.
Come on.
You have 3. 4, 3, 2.
There you go. 4, 3, 2.
Happy 2021.
Right? Notice the eyes. Like I need a little bit of lift for that, just
Like,
because a little late last night.
Yeah. But yeah, so let's do a moderately formal introduction, like, not social security number or anything, but just, name and background.
You're looking at me.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
So
long walks on the
my
beach.
name is Charli Nesbitt, if you want. And I fell into fitness. I was a gymnast in college.
So literally fell.
Kinda.
Or
There's a lot.
Tumbled into fitness.
You're so good at this.
Didn't.
Yeah.
Dude, I got dad jokes for days.
Okay,
and
well,
I had 'em
I'm just
before I had a
gonna
kid, so.
send you softballs and you let them fly.
We had it. We did, starting off with moist muffins was the that was
Perfect.
that was
This
perfect
is a great intro to our.
That's gonna go down in
So
podcast
professional.
history. Yeah, so I was a gymnast, and I'll be quite honest, I went through a depression when I was in college, and I was a type A kid, no surprise as a gymnast, and I was overwhelmed with the intensity of the sport, the pressures of trying to earn a scholarship, because I was a walk-on, and the pressures of school. And so I got depressed, and I had what I would call a stint of anorexia, which is just how I manifested my depression. So I transferred away from my
like
college.
as a control mechanism.
Yep. I wasn't even conscious of it. I just knew I could control food. So
Right.
I could, So I went home. I'm from Tennessee. I was in North Carolina. I went home to my home school.
It's hard to be anorexic down. They have really good barbecue.
They do.
Like
Especially in North Carolina.
Yeah. All the vinegar-based barbecue.
Do we want to talk about dry rubs or wet barbecue or no? Now that sounds double entendre.
Dry rubs tend to lead to wet rubs in the barbecue world and others. So
And muffins.
again,
Let's not talk about
Oh boy. This is an adult show.
X-rated.
And don't worry. Like a couple times ago, Julie and Deanna and I, we turned Nemo into something that was borderline R-rated. So
Okay, I have to listen for that one.
it's fantastic.
That's awesome.
But so you're in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Where did you go to college?
So I started off at NC State in Raleigh, and then I went.
I can't remember the mascot.
Oh, yeah, the Wolfpack.
Wolfpack.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I knew it was something like animal.
It's like forever ago.
Woof.
And then I transferred back to my home college, UT Knoxville. And I mean, honestly, like I had, since I was like 5, I didn't know what you do in the bewitching hours between 3 and 7, because I always had school and gymnastics.
Right.
So after college, like after probably my first day of classes, I went to the rec center, the Bubble, which is one of those inflated places, and they were doing aerobics. And I took a high impact aerobics class. And, I'm 2 weeks away from being a collegiate gymnast, so I was bouncing off the ceiling.
Sure.
So the instructor asked me after class, can I take you under my wing? And so, I just fell into group fitness that way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's like super cool
Yeah.
because it's an extension of your sport that you liked, which
100%.
as we've all got more mileage, it's like you can't play the sport forever, and it's really hard,
Yeah.
especially, like with Ryan, who played football exclusively. You don't just play pickup football when you're closing in on 40. It's like you don't play pickup anything hardly.
Yeah.
So it's really cool that you were able to like kind of keep that sort of same tone.
And it was always just my side
yesterday.
hustle.
Well, we kind of talked about yesterday too when we were just chatting about doing the podcast today that one of the main reasons why we got it, we both played sports and missing that team aspect of being in a group of people, everybody's working towards a common goal, you're all there together working hard, and that group exercise falls right into that.
The
I
energy.
think that was one of the reasons that I fell into it too.
Because it was like, for me, it was I did do jazzercise on Schools Out Day with my mom at the roller skating rink. But that was Twiggy, that was in the 70s, and that was when Thin was in.
Twiggy is the best reference we've had to date somebody. That is awesome.
Yeah.
My mom will be super excited.
There you go.
Wow.
Good. But
I mean, you have to know, I have to say this. Charli just had a big birthday this year, and I always tell her,
is it her annual 39th birthday?
It is her annual 39th
Was it your 11th annual 39th birthday?
Yeah.
It was.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I mean,
She was
amazing,
there
right?
with me because
I was with her. It was epic.
there was some skinny dipping involved.
Well, let's just say she's skinny dipped. I filmed it. I was like, here you go. Come on, you can do this. And it was freezing cold outside, so it was a good. And she had on white Crocs in the middle of the night.
And then in a handful of years, I'm going to throw it back at her because she's going to have to do it too.
Well, and depending on which child and which group are listening to the podcast, it could be a very large handful of years. I've come to find that most people, but the ladies in particular, not super keen about being outed about their age unless they're the ones to do it. So that's why we have annual 39th birthdays in our house.
I agree. But you know what? Okay, we got to get back to Kelly because I want to hear her story. But I think we need more people on our front windshield showing us that.
This is what 50 looks like.
Yeah.
This is what 60 looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm just lucky that fitness has always been part of my life.
Right.
Because my mom's generation, they found fitness with, women's liberation, and
like
things like
physical
that.
labor.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's liberation to be doing aerobics and that kind of thing. But
to actually break a sweat.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that, the professional tennis is still 3 sets because it's based off a mandate that they couldn't show exertion. That's why they don't. That's why they don't play the same number of sets. The only reason I know that is because Katie Day, who's here, she's she played at Gonzaga and stuff, and I actually paid attention to tennis because of that. And it's like,
interesting.
Wait, what? Why don't you play as many sets as the guys? Like, well, because it goes back to this. I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
And it's still that's funny. That's still in effect. Yeah.
So, but you started with sport.
Yeah. I mean, I volleyball, basketball, softball. So I played sports in college,
right?
JC level, but still played. And so when that ended, it kind of ended, like I only did for like 2 years. So I only played sport for about 2 years, like obviously like part of the college. And then after that ended, I was felt really lost. Like I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And group exercise, like there was, like the aerobics classes were happening, and I was so keen to music. I had danced a lot of my younger years, and so I loved that, like music and moving. And so I went and did a couple of those, and then it was funny. I got a letter in the mail, and it was from a small fitness company called Indita. It was years and years ago.
NDEITA. Yes,
I
remember.
Way back. Early 90s.
Yes, early 90s. So I remember I got that in the mail, and it just said a weekend training to learn to be a group exercise instructor. So I went through the weekend training, and then at the time I lived in Eugene, and there was a small gym out in Cresswell called Emerald Valley Resort, and my good friend Livia was the one of the managers out there, and I memorized a Gay Gasper step video over the weekend. Gay Gaspers, if anybody knows, those of you that have been in it for a long time, you're going to know that name. So I memorized her video, and I went in for an audition and acted like I had been teaching for a long time.
Fake it till you make it.
I did.
Let's go.
It's so
awesome.
funny. So that's how I got on. And then I just kind of taught myself how to teach.
Yeah. Well, and you're fire. I mean, Kelly, you guys know, like when she's.
Yeah. That's why Ryan's in such good shape trying to keep up with Kelly. It's like, it ain't because he trains that hard.
Yeah. But but she's like, the energy is contagious. The intensity is contagious. She puts all of herself into it.
She's a player coach.
Yeah. So it isn't, it's back to that point. You do feel like you are in a group training experience. Not somebody called me this once. Our friend reminded me when I was coaching once, like, just be careful that you don't sound too bubblegum, which will stick with me forever, because when you're always cheery and peppy, it's like you're not acknowledging the work that's being put out. It's
super shallow, and there's no there's no ebb and flow there. We have a friend who's a trainer that we always joke is like, if Disney created a character that was a personal trainer, it would be this guy. And it's like literally like it's the same. It's like it's a small world. The same animatronic thing. It's like all the time is always the same thing. It's like people come in, and even, I mean, if you guys have a bad day, you're kind of the dancing bear on stage. We kind of joke, like when you're in front of people, you're kind of like, at the circus. But at the same time, like if you're not authentic with them and hey, I just got sideswiped.
Yeah.
Just FYI, if I seem like an asshole, it's not you, it's me. Yeah. And it really is me. But you're not always on point, and then when you try to fake that you are fine, it comes off so much worse, and it just I don't know, it's funny because especially with like you guys using music as a core component of the function of the training. It's a solid distraction from the work that's going in. Julie says it all the time. I don't know if you know.
I know Julie.
Yeah, best friend Julie, BFJ. Yeah. She's like, dance calories hurt less. If you're dancing, it doesn't hurt as much. Compared to the skier.
Yeah,
but that's the thing. It's like people disconnect with the music, and then they're working way harder than they think they can, and then they look at their Whoop or their thing like, holy crap, I burned like 900 calories. Yeah. But if you go up there and like you're not authentic in the presentation of it, that's gonna be a grind. And that's not everybody's.
Well, and what's funny in my journey of group exercise, after I'd done freestyle for a number of years, I went in and found, it was at the time called Body Training Systems.
Yes, BTS.
And BTS, and at the time there was all these trainings you could take over the weekend, and it was a pre-programmed.
Yeah, they were like CECs, but built in their own ecosystem.
Yes, and so you learned like a release. You would learn 12 songs and 12 routines, and then you would do it in your class for the hour.
Right.
In one of those trainings, Charli was my trainer.
Oh,
so Charli was my trainer for Blast. We call it Blast now, but it was Body Step at the time. And so Charli was one of them. Another gal named Keely, and those two were pivotal for me to audition to become a trainer for the company. Yep. And so that's kind of how Charli and I met.
Okay.
So that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And during that time, then I joined on with BTS, who then switched over to the name of MOSSA because we split and became a U.S. only company at the time.
Because BTS was out of South America?
It was New Zealand.
New Zealand. Right. Which,
we were part of Les Mills initially.
Les Mills, that's right.
Yep.
The other one, what's the other one that came out of like South American was it Zumba? Their parent company, I can't think of the name of it. Beachbody. Yeah. They came out of Brazil, I think.
Maybe.
Yeah. I think that's right.
So MOSSA was New Zealand. The other one is
So
For
MOSSA is
those that don't care,
own.
keeping track at home.
Right, exactly. Right. I'm sure nobody cares all the details.
Otherwise known as me because it's something I forgot. It's like, shit, which way did that go? Right. Yeah, but Les Mills, I mean, that was like a big deal.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah. And Les Mills is still, I mean, they still run classes too. They do programs just like we do.
Yeah.
Ours are just slightly different and more US based. Yeah. So, but our programs now are, it's really exciting for us as a company. Our programs now are in China and Japan, and we've got Australia,
UK,
we've got some in the UK,
the
and
Caribbean, Australia.
Awesome.
Yeah, you said Australia.
Yeah, Dubai. I think there's some in Dubai.
High population density systems.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So it's pretty exciting.
So the company is obviously like with everything else, and again, if you. It's 2021. I think we're still required to talk about COVID,
right?
Even though it was, it's last year. It's over, right?
Year, it's over.
Yeah,
it doesn't exist.
I didn't get my vaccine yet.
I know. I'm still waiting.
We're not essential. But I know you guys as a company were pretty well positioned to be able to make that pivot to online because you already do a ton of content development,
right?
And you already had pretty good social media. Now it became like a massive out because you can't go into the gyms anymore right now in a lot of places. You can't put 30 people because the structure of that financial ecosystem was we got to put 40 bodies in a room per hour and turn it over, just like the cycling studios and everything else, to make money. You guys, MOSSA, I mean, I say you, it's obviously it's you guys. The company pivoted pretty quick to be able to, hey, we're gonna create content and distribute it a little bit differently and monetize a little bit differently. But you guys kick some serious ass.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a crazy time.
Yeah, they were the first major company that had virtual programming that gave the free membership. Like they gave it away free, I believe, before Peloton, before NTC. They gave their premium content away for free for
60 days.
60 days because they saw it coming, and they know the stickiness of moving to music with great coaching. And just building your, as we call it, your movement IQ. So one of the things they do really well is remind you that you can do these workouts again. In fact, you should. Yeah. Instead of being fickle and like, okay, I did that once, let's go somewhere else.
Well, it's choreography.
Yeah, that's right.
You get better at the dance.
That's right.
Like you can tango or Texas two-step at a beginner level, but you can also do it at an advanced level and do all kinds of like spins and twirls and flips and cool shit.
And it's an amazing learning cycle because we experience it in the gym. Like there is this process of when you first do what we'll call a release, and there's programming behind it. And if people who've been through more than one release with us, they know the beginning, it's a little bit clunky. They're in their heads a little bit.
Right, okay.
They're not, immersed in the experience per se, but they also know that there's that really great feeling of being successful in learning. Because as adults, we don't put ourselves in an environment for learning. We don't like it.
They like to be comfortable and not do anything that challenges them. That's why not everybody, sorry, I shouldn't say that because that's kind of a dickhead thing to say. But that's why so many people are out of shape and lazy and complacent, because they don't want to push push and be uncomfortable.
And change is hard.
But I don't realize that can change over time.
It's a practice habit. Then you start to feed off it. I mean, you two, I'm sure, it's just like me and everybody else. It's like you have to work out or you literally go crazy.
Right.
Like if you're not constantly learning something new or trying to push, it's like I'm going to climb the walls.
Yeah. And I think that for us, like, as you know, MOSSA as a company too, and even like Charli and I, like the whole point of, I think the biggest thing that we wanted to talk about too is I think the whole conversation around group exercise being aerobics, like, you know, like initially when we first got started,
Jane Fonda jazzercise.
Yes, we were having that conversation about that.
And
then it's actually,
although the bands are cool, like the swag was,
that's part of the thing, right? You got all your stuff. But there's so much more to it. Like, especially if you're somebody who is nervous to go into the regular gym and push some weight, you know, there's options in all different types of group X classes to learn first, like the basics of squatting and lunging and you know, pushing and all of the things that we, you know, a lot of times we just equate group X to cardio, and that's not necessarily what's happening nowadays.
Well, in your program, I mean, you guys are protocol driven, which is, I mean, there's a leveling up. Right. You start with basics, fundamentals, and you move up to more advanced stuff. But then also within your programs, you've got, it's not just, I'm not gonna, and I don't know, you know, I kind of know Zumba. I kind of know some of this stuff, but it's not my, like, I don't, you know, I go to dance with my wife. I don't, you know, in the living room, it's, you know, it's trying to make our kids laugh, and you know, the dogs are like, good God. But I also know that your guys' programming is within the class, it's built to ramp up, it's built to move down. You've got recovery built in where it's more strength based, not just like bouncing bunnies, like some of the spin classes that I've been to, where it's just kind of like go until you break. And you guys, that's pretty unique. I mean, as far as I understand, that's pretty unique for.
It's called our program development cycle. It's called like our every program has its what's the word I'm looking for? Every program has like its game, you know, it's book, like it's playbook on how, and every track has an objective. So like, you know, track number one, your architecture, that's what I was looking for. But like, obviously track number one would be your warm up. But in every program, like Charli teaches power, which is our barbell program, blast, which is our step program, but it's very athletic versus like old school dancing around the step. It's much different than that. There's like hit trainings in there.
Is blast the one with the Viper?
No, blast is one with the step.
Oh, the step.
So it looks like a step class.
It looks like a step
but
class.
It's very
I know
athletic.
this much, which is dangerous.
I like to think of it as platform training, because once you take steps away, then it's like,
it's just thinking of it as a tool versus like, let's dance on the step.
Let's dance on the step.
Yeah. And then Synergy, you've taught Synergy, right? So you do Synergy, which is our mind body program. And then I teach dance, which is groove. And then I teach ride, which is a cycling program. But we also have R30, which is a 30-minute ride. Core 30 minutes is just a straight up core class, but it's not like laying on your back doing crunches. You use a weight plate. And so it's loaded movement, functional loaded movement. And then I think one of our best programs is called 3D30, which is using the Viper to what you were talking about. So Viper is just loaded movement. So Viper's a weighted tube. There's a whole bunch of different grips on it. So for example, if you lunge to the side and you push the Viper away from your body, you have so much more load to one side. So it's called tensile strength, right? That your other body has to try to hold you there. So just training that way and training in different planes is what our company is all about. And we work a lot with Institute of Motion, which is, they call them IOM, and they're like they're a group of
exercise
incredibly
scientists,
brilliant people,
like actual physiologists training.
They're
I mean,
amazing.
I've seen.
Yes, they're amazing.
You know, for people that don't know, your husband is he's an action figure, and he comes in here days after doing the Viper thing for 30 minutes, and it's basically almost some of the programming seems like it's built on Tabatas, you know, not quite 2010s, but like 2020s, you know, intervals, high intensity, low intensity. He'll come in here and it's like, I'm just going to row and flush out. I'm like, oh, what'd you do last night, Cupcake? He's like, I did the Viper thing for 30 minutes and he kicked my ass. You know, Mr. I want to go pull 500 pounds off a deadlift, which he can do. But that little Viper, the little, it just crushed a grown man.
It does.
And which is not the point, but it's more that is just because, not to scare anybody off. But it's like, he's, you know, Ryan's an animal. And it's like, and he can make it as challenging for him as he wants it to be. And then at the same time, like my mom, who's 66, 66 this year. She's over the speed limit. That's all I remember. She could do it also, right? You know, she's not going to go in there and be like, well, if Ryan's dead in 30 minutes, I'm dead in 30 minutes. Like, no, it's scaled.
And it's different weights. So you can choose the weight of your Viper.
You can choose a telephone pole like your husband.
Or
like
Scottish games.
Well, 4 kilograms.
So it might help to know that the inception came from a trainer for hockey players, for pro trainers in Canada. Michel Dalcourt. And he is an exercise scientist. And what he saw was that the farm kids were beating all the city kids in Canada. And if you know hockey in Canada, it's deep.
It's deeper religion than Catholics in Italy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I have a hockey family, so we know that, like,
is it hockey or hockey?
Well, we're from here, so we say hockey, but yeah.
Hecky.
We've been to many hacky games.
Many hockey games.
Yeah. But so he saw the farm kids were just killing the city kids, and he basically studied it, not studied, but he looked at what their movement was, and the farm kids are what he called farm strong.
Farm strong, yeah.
And they're
use that
moving,
a lot.
they're moving this, this weight that sometimes is offset.
Right.
That,
Three planes of motion.
3 planes of motion and or infinite planes of motion in a way, right?
Right.
And if you think about, I'm not a farm girl, but think about like moving a bale of hay and then chucking it.
Right.
How is that different from the rotary power you need for a wrist shot?
Wrist shot, yeah.
Yep. So that's how he developed
or punch
it.
or a baseball throw, or a bat swing.
All of
Yeah,
that.
no,
yeah.
absolutely.
And then that's when he created the Viper. And then like MOSSA is aware and savvy, and then saw what was happening with that program. And then actually they came to MOSSA and said, can you program with this tool, this Viper tool, and make it maybe more palatable for group training?
Yeah.
It's brilliant. But
brilliant.
it speaks
It's amazing.
to what MOSSA is really prioritizes is movement health.
Right.
And Kelly's a developer. So I'm a trainer and an instructor. So I train instructors and I do some of the nerdy, wordsmithing behind the scenes. Kelly actually helps develop programming. So she's way closer to the products than I am. But yeah, the principle is about movement health.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times Kathy, so Kathy Spencer Browning is one of our, the VPs of training, and she always says that, which is really great, is like, on any given day, try not to think about what exercise you're going to do for that day. Think about how you're going to move your body for that day.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like
Okay.
completely different
mindset.
frame of mind. Yeah. It's a different mindset of what you're thinking. And I think the biggest thing I've learned with them over the last couple of years, and being a little bit more involved than I was before, is just how important it is to have, like odd position strength. And, because I was I competed years ago, but when I competed for figure competitions, it was pretty linear. Like everything was lift heavy, and I did tons of cardio and, all of that. And it's
quarter turn and pose.
Yes.
Quarter
and
turn.
hold and squeeze.
And,
That's
and
right.
squeeze while you let
Right.
something else go loose, because it's hard.
And I have to say, that's when I was the most injured.
Because it was too linear.
It's too linear. And so
Yeah.
now that, I think too, there's always a place for everything. So I think that, personal training, there's a place for that, clearly.
Right.
I think that, Olympic lifting, there's a place for that. I think that there's just a place for everything. I think it's finding, like, the reason why, at least for me, and I think Charli in the same sense, is that Group X is so emotional. Like you get connected with a group of people, and it's exercise adherence. And to your point of music, everything we do in group exercise is related to music at some level. So in our development cycle, we actually edit music to the moves that we're doing. So sometimes I'll have our editing guy add in like sound effects and things like that people don't even know are there, but it actually makes them work harder. They don't even know that it's there, but it'll be like, pew, pew, and that's asking them to jump higher, and they do it. They don't know why they're doing it, but they just do it. So all of that is what makes group exercise so exciting, because you can work so much harder because the person next to you is working hard, the person next to them is working hard, and no one's watching each other, but it's all there.
It's almost perceived, like you don't even realize you're doing it, and you're just stepping your gait. Alyssa does that too. Like she'll speed it, like this tempo's too slow. We need to step a little bit quicker, and she'll just do those little tweaks.
Yeah.
And that's even just for herself. Like I want to work a little bit harder, higher heart rate. That's awesome that they like. You're not manufacturing the music. You're just taking what's out there and optimizing it. For which is really cool. I mean, because that's, humans are the only species that we're aware of currently on this globe that have music, that create, I mean,
it's a universal language.
And it's a universal language. You can get a beat, drop the beat.
Yeah.
You can absolutely travel and like, you get that rhythm going. It's like, I'm sure you could. Well, because you've been to China, pre-COVID.
Yep,
you
pre-COVID.
had that big. Did you go?
I did not.
Okay, so that trip was like, I was like, that's insane.
It was amazing.
And I have no doubt, 95% of the people in the audience had no idea what you were saying in English.
Right.
But everybody could move with the rhythm.
They
and
do.
they could catch that beat and find the timing. And it's like, oh, cool, we can communicate without actual words and, be connected, and which is really neat. Because I mean, if you tried to coach Olympic lifting like that, it'd be like, grunts and shoves and lots of body contact and like, how am I getting my hips through to talk to this guy? Well, I'm just going to shove his hips. Like, I don't know if that would work as well.
And for Olympic lifting, like, the power of music and it being rhythmic and motivating and inspiring you to do more things than you're capable of, if the music were that much in the forefront for Olympic lifting, you could actually get hurt, because I could see someone snatching too fast if they're trying to stay on the music, when really they need to do, and I'm not an Olympic lifter, but they need to do the snatch and they need a full 2 minutes of recovery. Whereas in fitness, we move, the music is set at a pace so that you can move to it with,
constant movement
with constant
versus one explosive
and
movement.
Loads are less, right? Loads would be less because you're moving in time to things. You don't have time for...
Which is interesting because, considering you guys had that big push to social media in the pandemic and the lockdown and the quarantine and everything, and trying to get people to move, which is a good thing. At the same time as you've got a lot of people that maybe came out of a traditional strength training mindset of more is better. Yeah. More doesn't mean better. More just means more. It might not be quality. And I'm certain there are a few people who are struggling to identify with that concept now that the gyms aren't open in the capacity where they could just go show up to a big box gym for 2.5 hours and do a set of bench, talk for 20 minutes, do another set of bench, talk for, and now they're actually having to like move. There's been some eye-opening, at least some of the stuff I've seen, where it's like, I'm not nearly as fit as I thought I was because I can't do the same thing that I was doing, and now I'm trying to do this new thing, and it's like, which is what makes your programming interesting. Just the foresight to be like, hey, we're gonna have people coming into this that have no idea what they're doing, so we need to ramp them up, or they're just gonna, you get some big dumb mammal, be like, cool, let's go dance, and then 30 minutes I'm broke myself because it's like I'm trying too hard, with other programs or some of the stuff I saw with there's other entities out there. I try not to flame anybody, but every once in a while it happens on accident. But there's other entities out there where more is more and more is better in their minds. So just go harder. And that, for kind of somebody who's become a rowing geek, and I see certain programs that include a lot of rowing and treadmill running and things like that. And it's like, no, just go faster on the stroke rate. It's like, no, be better at it. Like go slow down, like be more efficient, be more purposeful, not just more for more. And that's the one thing I noticed looking at your guys' stuff compared to a lot of other things, because everybody started putting stuff out in January, February, March last year when shit hit the fan. And it's like, okay, who's really got an idea of how to actually program? And you guys fucking kicked ass. Like it was cool.
But we've been doing it for so long.
Right.
I mean, I think that's part of it, right? We just had never been really in the social media platform. I mean, even pre-COVID, our appearance on social media was actually quite small. It was quite small. Yeah, we weren't, and I don't think we weren't even, it's not that we weren't thinking about it at some point, getting to that place of like, having an online platform and having people exercise that way. But this definitely pushed us in a direction much quicker. Yeah. Which at the end of all, we talked about it. We had a meeting a couple of days ago where we said it's actually a blessing that it all happened, because now we can reach more people. Because initially the way that it was all set up is that we went through gyms. Right. So we trained instructors how to instruct it. They would then bring it to their members
in a box.
Right. And so so then all through the gyms. So now, more people get to be part of what we've been doing forever. And of course, we're so biased because we believe in them so much. We've worked with them for so long that we're just so excited that there's more people that can be part of what we know is smart programming. Right. And I think our big word we talk about a lot too is variability. And I think that's what's really important, is making sure that you have variability in your training so that you're not just constantly doing the same thing all the time. Right. That's why we've got, 11 programs or whatever, so that there's always something for everybody or something for your body to try out differently.
Which I'm sure enhances the sticky factor for people, because they're like, oh, cool, I might not like this thing, but it's only going to be 6 weeks, and I know it's good for me even though I hate it, but I don't have to do it every single time.
And there's a lot of trust in it. I mean, from the decisions they make on who's on the video. So for the consumer at home, you'll see people on the video that... So I have a background in psychosocial counseling around medicine.
This is going to be awesome.
And so,
we're just going to pull up Instagram accounts and just have you do analysis. This is going to be great. Like,
not that deep. But there's some fundamentals for motivation, and one of which is you need to feel like there's a theory that's been around since the 80s, but one of the pillars of this 3-part theory is that you need to feel relatable. So I need to see somebody on the video, or I need to see somebody in a Group X class, participant or instructor, or I need to hear stories, or I need to hear conversation or coaching that I can relate to. So if you're up there speaking, technical language with lifting terminology or industry terminology, and if you are rocking, 4% body fat and not even looking me in the eye and telling me how you struggled to not eat a Pop-Tart for breakfast, then I'm not going to want to do that. But what MOSSA does is they understand their consumer really well, which is the everyday athlete, or the somewhat the conditioned as well as the super conditioned athlete, but know that
the high mileage athlete.
Right. And we all, as humans, we all have fallacies. We all have insecurities, and we need breaks. We need rest. We need options. We need to know when we can push ourselves. What was that?
Intervals. Just a life
Mm-hmm.
interval. And all of that, what you just said, I'm going to absolutely steal that. And that is going to be the entire description of this podcast from here on out, because that's the whole, it's funny. I mean, part of suckering you into it a little bit, but, really starting with the whole purpose of this sit down and all the other ones is that I'd be really curious to see the metrics from MOSSA's social media and participatory following pre-COVID, because my guess is you probably had a higher median age with less social media engagement.
Probably.
Kind of like a lot of the functional training gyms around in the space in our demographic is they're not social media selfie types.
Right.
They're
So true.
they have, I don't want to be a dickhead, but I'm going to be, they have real jobs. They have kids. They have shit they got to do that doesn't involve being at the gym for 2 hours a day socializing or being on their own social media platform 7 hours a day talking shit, tweeting, all that kind of stuff. And the way you just described the entirety of the programming and the structure of that business is for the grown-ups and for the people that it's like, this is sustainable long term.
Yeah.
And I look at that on a business side as most is more not interested in stepping over dollars to pick up dimes. It's like, hey, I want.
That's a good one.
I want.
I did too. I was like, that's really good. Write that down.
You can take that to the bosses.
Yeah.
But I mean, realistically, it's like the fitness game is a longevity game.
Yeah.
And not just individually, but even on the business side. It's like if you want to be in the game, because I mean, before Peloton, which we'll get to that in a second. Before Peloton, there was the Nordic Track. Before the Nordic Track, there was that and that and that. And they all have a cycle and a wave. Some if they're good, they're 7 years.
Right.
And even with programming, it's like Jazzercise. Jazzercise kind of had a resurgence because they finally came back around, but you don't see the Thigh Master anymore. It had its moment. And fitness is a massive set of waves, and it's just this constant churning.
Yeah.
And Wolfgang.
Yeah.
Do you know Wolf?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Wolf is like my Yoda, and we talk about this stuff all the time. Like, in a way, nothing new has been invented in fitness since the Greeks.
Exactly.
I mean, everything's an offshoot of it, and there's different ways to package it.
Yeah.
But even with gyms and everything else, it's how do you communicate that? Because you could be that 4%, dickhead up on stage, and preaching down to people looking for followers.
And some people really do. Some people really do like that. Like it's aspirational, and that's
yes. But the hard part is that I would say really until COVID, but everything on social media fitness wise, because Instagram is all fitness. I mean, it's a fitness tool. What you saw in fitness was either super niche like bodybuilding. Or pro athlete, traditional sports stuff. But like this group sitting down here, I don't have any representation. What do you do with the broke ass, high mileage? Spartan came along, and so for some of us because that's fucking hard.
Yeah.
But it was awesome because it's like, Deanna just ran 31 miles on that Wildwood Trail in 6.5 hours. I'd sooner literally drive my car off a cliff than do that. But if you told me a Spartan race was going to take 6 hours and it's 16, fuck yeah, sign me up, because there's cool shit to do and it's really hard and you're wrecked, but it's super fun, right?
Yeah.
But because that spoke to me and the team thing and the concept and all that, I've never had that, that drill instructor style of acceptance. It's like, it doesn't, I don't need that. Some people do. And if they do, they need to find that. And it's not to bag on that, because it's a different delivery mechanism.
Yeah.
I just think that what you guys do, you're getting a larger, again, stepping over dollars, not stepping over dollars to pick up dimes. You're looking for the long-term, sustainable client base and community.
And I think, when you talk about let's just call them hardcore athletes, there will never be negative talk about that. But there are tournaments and games and events and gyms for those athletes. So their needs are being met.
And have been for a long time.
And have been for a long time. And we've dabbled in it and enjoy that. It scratches an itch. But there's also, we're multifaceted people. And the average consumer sometimes feels that there's nothing out there for them. Or what is rising to the front is the stuff that is about aesthetics.
Yes.
And about, quicker, faster, fitter, stronger in a shorter period of time.
Numbers.
Yeah.
To your point, the most injured you've ever been is when you were doing a purely aesthetic sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
I mean,
completely.
it's not an accident.
Yeah.
Which you wouldn't regret doing, because that was super cool. You pushed yourself.
Yeah. I mean, it was a crazy space to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a wild
ride. I
ride.
would never do it again, but I, looking back, it shaped, where I'm at this point, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think too, it's hard because when we talk about it, it's like you never want to turn away.
I have food.
The athletes.
I could hear that.
That was my stomach.
That was Charli's stomach. If you could hear that through the microphone, you might have been able to. But turn away, because I think still some of the programs we have Fight, which is a boxing program, and we have some stuff that we have Athlete 30 that is a complete HIIT training that works on power, agility, strength, and speed. So we've got programs that for the athlete that they would love it.
Right.
I think just that the overall picture is, I think so many things are programmed to make the fit fitter. Mm-hmm. And then we talk about that all the time. There's all these things that are programmed because, and the percentage people to make the fit, that percentage of people that are those fit people are so small.
Survive or die.
Yeah, and then so when you look at that and you're like, to Charli's point, there's all these people that want to move their bodies. They see all this stuff to make the fit fitter. They in their minds think like, oh, should I be doing that? I think I should be doing that. Well, then they start doing that. They get injured, or they can't keep up, or whatever happens, and it doesn't. And they feel so defeated, right? And then they quit. Right. And so it's just trying to figure out a way. Like our whole tagline is our name, MOSSA, is move in Italian, and our whole goal of our company is to just get more people moving, however, whatever that looks like, whatever program you dive into. And I think as a company, we are coached to coach empathetically. Like we're on stage and we are taught that, like the way to coach a group of people and make sure that everyone feels included, even if they're on the other side of the screen. So it's a pretty interesting
Well, and that's a unique approach because, again, like you said, fitness, back in the day, if you were working out with any kind of resistance training weight, you were niche. You were in a Gold's Gym, maybe a Nautilus, eventually Bally's, things like that. But it was in the 80s and early 90s. Places smelled weird. It was kind of dark. It was kind of weird. And you were just like, okay, yeah, cool. And then you learned by, reading Muscle and Fitness or Women's Fitness or, all the different magazines because there was no social media. For anybody that's under the age of 30, there was a time when there was no internet.
Just so you know.
Yes.
But the way that industry has shifted into a multi-billion-dollar industry now is for a reason. It's because you have a lot of consumer churn that want to buy the new thing.
Right.
And my opinion, which means diddly shit, but my opinion is up until now, it's been a lot of the, hey, cool, the next product to get the next group hooked on this whatever thing because it's consumable, and then we'll flip it to the next product, and the next product. And there's no longevity there, which means that you've got people that start and stop, and all their shit ends up on Craigslist.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas your guys' product, kind of like the longer term sustainable community-based gyms, not the big box gyms, the product is the people. The product is the community.
Exactly.
You also have extremely good protocols and structure because you got to keep people coming. And the only way to keep them coming is one, they got to have some sense of success. Like you got to get better at stuff.
Yeah.
Like if all it was just a moving finish line, people quit and be like, fuck this, I'm done.
Yeah.
But the shared suffrage thing is, for the dance side, it's usually a little more positive. You get into I guess the flip side would be like a Jim Jones experience, right? Or some of the other, not that, because dance is intense. You can get into, you can be intense with anything you want to do, but just where there's other gyms and structures that are based on the shared suffrage side, but on the extreme where it's like, hey, we're only for the 5%, which is fucking great because sometimes people need that.
Yeah.
But the core product there is the community.
Yeah.
You're bonding the people together.
Yeah.
Coach, instructor, programmer, co-class people to where one, they're accountable to each other, because a lot of people coming into fitness, that are new and out of shape, they haven't been accountable to themselves.
Right.
So if they're not accountable to themselves, how can you just assume they're going to show up to class on time if they don't have a bond with everybody else? Like where
and usually scared to death.
Right.
Usually scared to death. Like I don't even. How can I do this?
Yeah.
Because really, what you always see is the fit fitter classes. That's all you see. So if you're really deconditioned or you just haven't had experience with it, it's scary. Like it's so scary. And so I think that's why it's so good to be able to start, somewhere or find a connection to something that you feel comfortable with, whether that's at home, you find a program online, and then you can drive yourself. I think too, that's what's so great too with MOSSA right now is our online app is that you can do the classes at home, and then those same classes you can find at a gym.
Right.
So
it's familiar.
It's familiar. It's
Right.
something
The
you
other
know.
part of that like model is competency. So
Right.
you can build your competency at home where
Right.
you feel safe and where
You
don't
can trip
have
and fall
that
in front of the cat.
fear.
Nobody cares.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then guess what? You join a gym. Next thing you know, 6 months later, you're in the same class. You might try something new because you've got trust and faith in the programs and the instructors who are leading them, and you aren't fearful of trying something new because now you're like,
you're not gonna be embarrassed.
you're not gonna, or you will, but you've seen it.
Yeah.
You know, the instructor's fallen, or the person next to you, grapevines to the right, you go to the left and you laugh about it. Like the worst thing that can happen is maybe you do a movement in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
You know, even when it comes to barbells, you know, like we make mistakes in our coaching. You know,
You've never made a mistake before. What's the funniest thing that has ever happened to you?
I fell off stage.
You fell off stage?
I have
like
fallen
while
off the
filming?
stage.
While filming or just teaching?
Once filming, yep. And then in teaching, I did fall off stage and landed almost directly onto my butt,
That's awesome.
but still kept coaching. The microphone's still on.
That's the ultra advanced move only Jedi Masters can do.
That's right.
Moving on.
Yeah, that's right. But like this, I guess the point is that there's this fear of adults of not being really good at something.
Right.
And what MOSSA wants you to do is just give it a shot. Especially, so a couple of things, it's very cyclic. Number one, our programs are super successful, so the classes are big.
Right.
Because the classes are big, there's going to be someone that you can relate to in there. There's going to be somebody who's got a body shape like you, or an age like you, or a gender like you. And then the other thing that's really important is the message isn't for you to be the best you can be at this thing in this hour. The message is, have a great time doing this so that you can have 23 more great hours of your day and apply this to other things in life, whether it's playing with your kids or, you know, going snowboarding or kicking around a soccer ball, or
being a better, more fit person makes you a happier person. Or if you're having a shitty day, it just at least gives you an outlet to where you're not tearing your kid's head off because they didn't, you know,
so
clean up
true.
the bathroom
Oh my
after they
gosh,
left, you
that's
know.
a
I mean,
big
it's
one.
that's when I know when mine hasn't worked out. I'm like, oh, you need to go work out.
no, this isn't a do you need to go work out. This was an order.
You have
go
to.
work
Go
out.
get your clothes. Yeah, go
get
change your
out.
clothes and go work out.
the same
But
thing
it is so
about
true.
Kelly
There's
too,
such
by
a
the
release
way.
from it, especially when you do it.
Really?
Time
No
after
way.
time.
We're whispering. We're actually whispering. He
we're-
says the same thing about you too sometimes.
I'm sure. I did.
No, but that emotional release, it's powerful.
Well, it's hormonal too. I mean, it's like you're literally dumping hormones as you exercise. I mean, I'm very lucky for a multitude of reasons to be married to my wife, but she is also a very fit person. And whether it's, we both dealt with orthopedic stuff to where it's like, I can't do the thing I want to do, but I can go do whatever, something just to get, and after about 2 days, dude, I am not a fun person.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm not like it might be, doing construction or things like this, but I have to like physically just go lift, like, or do Tabatas or something.
Throw something around.
You
Get a
got to
little
do
sweaty.
something that's out of the, to get it out.
Yeah.
And she's the same way. She'll go for like an 8-mile walk.
Yeah.
And her walks are like Roadrunner. Like it's like, I can't drive to keep up. But it's a physiochemical response also. And people, now you add the emotional side into the psych, of like, oh, I feel bad about my body image. But then that's compounding on top of the physiochemical damage that's, happening. Then if you can start to flip that script, it's like, man, most people, if you can just get them to come in for 20 days, not in a row, but just 20 days. It's like, dude, you're going to hold that habit and you're going to keep going because you feel better.
Yeah.
And then the community, it's like, hey, there's somebody there that's like me, or there's somebody there that I'm different than, but they're fucking awesome because they're interesting. And every time we go, I get a new story.
Yeah.
Which is
the shared experience.
Yes.
Yeah. And and I really do think like I get the feeling like you look good, but it's so temporary. Like the feedback you get from a mirror and liking what you see is a moment in time. But
a dopamine hit.
Yeah, but the feeling good in your body, regardless of what shape you're in or regardless of what you look like, it carries you throughout the day. And like we were talking about how you said how being authentic and coming in and maybe having a bad day, and we do have those days. But then, and I'm not exaggerating, like you will be ticked off about something and then class will be done. You're like, okay, what
was I mad about? It happens to me a lot. I know.
Yeah. It's just such a mood shifter. And that feeling, I've said it before, it's a nice bonus that you get an aesthetic result that you like. And I'm going to be really vain here and say I wish I had smaller thighs, but I will not trade the work that I do because my legs would atrophy and they would be smaller.
Right.
I wouldn't trade that aesthetic, what I see as a benefit of having smaller thighs, for the emotional and psychosocial and community experience of working out.
Or even the physical consequence, because if you have smaller quads, you can't push things as far and you can't do things as much. Or the classic, I wish my butt was smaller. Of course, I've never said that because I want it's like, Ryan, can I have some glute donations, please? But it's like, big butt, big deadlift, big legs, big lower hemisphere, strong lower body. Also less prone to injury when you're trying to do other things, even if it's basics like,
so true.
Remodeling your backyard or running with the kids, chasing around a 4-year-old at, an age over the age of 25. It's like, it's
those
a functional muscle.
Yeah.
Also.
And it's a rewiring though that you have to do, I think, with yourself constantly, especially, especially as women. Like I think especially as women, you have to do that.
It's true. I was just thinking like, I should stop saying that because I'm not sure if I actually believe that anymore. I used to say a lot, like fitness gives me some things that I would do no matter what, like the whole thigh thing. But as I'm sitting here, I'm like, that's kind of a broken record. I've said that to people to encourage them to not focus on the aesthetics, but I don't actually know if I...
Do you have one daughter? Mm-hmm. Would you tell your daughter that?
Never.
Right.
In fact, she's built muscle because of the age that she is at, and she's more adaptive to building muscle. And she did some training because she had an injury last year, and she's had to work on her legs a little bit. And she loves it.
Right.
Like our family notices, like, look at that, So I think you're right. I think I probably haven't even acknowledged the fact that I've rewired that thinking to
But the statement's almost autonomic because of how you grew up, right? I mean, you're, as we said, the 11th annual 39th birthday. So 50 trips around the sun. Right.
Yeah.
And you spent probably the first 22 of those.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you're 1 through 5, you're not, but I mean, you're constantly bombarded with messaging, especially back then, pre-social media, pre-female superheroes on a big screen. All of the imagery and stuff that was baked in was to what you just said. I got my thighs smaller. Why? Because I got it. Why? Who fucking cares?
I know. And well, it's funny because we don't have to go down the rabbit hole, but this
is all about rabbit holes.
I have this pivotal moment where I was in gymnastics, my first love of my life, grabbed my thigh and said sturdy. And I never forgot that moment. And I think that stuck with me.
That was a coach?
No, first boyfriend.
Oh.
First everything, but so that's like that rabbit hole of like, and my husband wouldn't want my thighs to be smaller. He likes strength, so anyways.
Isn't that crazy?
Okay, so this is a session now about Charli.
Which is awesome because
so
out there, hopefully somewhere, if this, is somebody that is thinking like you but hasn't been able to articulate it yet, and you just articulated it for them.
I actually think it's, 99.9% of any woman I've ever met, there's something, right? That you battle all the time.
Every guy.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, that is true.
Turn the mics on when Ryan and I are here with Paul, and it's like, God damn it, my stomach and this and that, and I get this little like pouch. Fuck. Or I want a bigger butt. It's guys too.
I trained with a nutritionist for a little while, and it was so amazing when she said to me once, because it's funny that you said that about your thighs and stuff. Like I, genetically, even like my family, everyone is stocky. Like we're all,
all these adjectives that are basically just like synonyms for, is that somebody trying not to call me fat or ugly? I can't tell.
So, and so I think that it's always in the back of my mind, like if I didn't move my body, I would be XYZ.
We're going to be in trouble.
Right? Like, so I think that for me is always like a motivation to keep going because I just don't want to not feel good. Number one, but number two, the fear of what could be if I didn't do that.
Right.
Which is funny because you went into figure for a hot minute.
Right.
Which is, I would wonder, partly you're the psychosocial. Was that a fear-driven activity?
I can say that
afraid
without a doubt.
To be,
without a doubt.
Afraid to end
and
up
and I didn't even initially start off doing it. So I was lifting with Lori at the time, the gal at the gym.
Lori Jorgensen?
Smith. Lori
Smith. Okay.
So I was just her lifting partner because she was getting ready for bodybuilding.
Yep.
And I was like, there is no way I'm doing this. Like, I just never thought, there's no way I'm going to do this. And then as we kept training and my body was changing a little bit, and her husband that was kind of training us at the time was like, just think about it. Because I couldn't do bikini because I was I just had too much muscle. So much muscle that they're like, you couldn't lose enough muscle to be bikini.
Right.
So, and I didn't want to do bodybuilding because I didn't want to build more muscle.
Right.
So,
or get so disproportionate.
Yeah.
As
so
we
then
talked
I was
about
like,
the
you know
injuries.
what? I'll train with you like I'm doing it. I still didn't commit at that point. I was like, I'll just train with you like I'm doing it. And then we'll just kind of see what happens. Because I think for me, there's always, and this is funny, like we have these things, like these things come to you as you're talking. But I think I always allow myself an out. Like I'll say something first before it happens so that I can say, well, see, I told you that happened.
Yeah.
So I never said I fully will commit to this. I'll just say, well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
When I get there. And so then when I got there, I was like, well, I mean, I guess I could keep going, And then I did a couple competitions, and then I was like, well, I have to win before I stop doing this. And then I'll be done.
Side,
and then it was fine. But it's just interesting.
Yeah.
It's just an interesting place to, but how we all say to ourselves certain things. And back to the nutrition, what she said to me was, look at your, like, if you think your legs are big, think about them like, my legs are big because I get to run with my kids. I get to, like you were saying, to your point of like, I get to do all these things with them. Or my stomach might have some stretch marks, but I just birthed 3 children.
3 humans.
Right. Yeah. Like I actually grew 3 humans in my body. And I think like for me, especially, I have to constantly remind myself of that though. Like it isn't just that you think it once and you're like, oh, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like it is, but I think being aware of the voices that talk to you in your head and having the positive voices that can override that is a constant battle, but you can do it. I mean, you can continue to do that. You just have to be very aware of where you're at.
Well, and if I was going to say, if I can tie the two topics we're talking about together, is that we could, as instructors, coach and cue all about the aesthetic benefits. We could talk about how this is going to make your butt smaller. This is going to make your waist skinnier.
Which is how it used to be.
Exactly.
And we could feed that terrible voice in your head, because I would guess, I think I've heard this before, that most people in group fitness, the first thing they see when they see themselves, they see negative.
Right.
Their voices are like probably 9 out of 10 of the comments in their head or messaging is negative. But what MOSSA does, flips the script and says, this is going to make you stronger. This is going to help you do this, like the long-term benefits.
Right.
And then there's this idea of marginal gains where you can really recognize the small changes that you're making in that moment. Because if you only talk about the 6-pack abs that are going to take 3 months and are
all made in the kitchen, just to be clear.
Gonna say,
you can work out all you want for 2 hours. You fuck it all up with the other 22 in the kitchen.
Yeah, like this unattainable thing. Then where are your wins? I need you to focus on the wins right now. Look at 15, 16, you did all 16 of those, or something like that. And recognizing the strength, recognizing the community. Like in Kelly's classes, it's definitely like, and I like to think mine, but I'm in it, so it's hard to tell, but it's definitely we're all in this together.
Right.
And she acknowledges the individual, but she also acknowledges the group.
Yeah, yours are like that too.
Yeah, I like to try to be that way.
Yeah.
But it's like this shared experience instead of focusing on, like, how stupid is that? Is if the negative talk is what you don't like, what you see, and you're gonna coach and cue to that.
Right.
Why would we feed that?
That's the lead with a stick, not with a carrot kind of thing. And that's that drill instructor.
He's got a lot of them.
Oh, dude, it's
next time,
it's
pen
so
and paper.
bad.
Yeah.
So if you want me to just go to pure Star Wars and Wookiee references, I can. Random stupid shit. But the drill instructor kind of thing, right? I mean, there's a 5% that works for, because that's a negative reinforcement tool. It's like, you're not good enough. You got to do more. You got to do this. You have to do this number. You don't get the T-shirt. That kind of thing, which has its place and has its place for a certain type of person. Unfortunately, it's a lot of them. I mean, if somebody with MOSSA, it's a little bit different, but you guys have both been in a gym setting and you've worked in those settings. And if someone walked in and it was like, you're a square peg and this is a round hole event, not the whole thing, just the event, you're probably not going to be able to round your corners enough to fit in this hole, right?
Yeah.
So let's find you a square hole and let's find you the thing that fits you better, because then you're going to adhere to it. If you are the person that, for whatever multitude of subconscious reasons, likes to get screamed at and told that you're less than so that you work harder, there are people that can provide that for you. I don't personally think that's a longevity based approach, because how long can you just take the abuse and still have the positive outcome? And what is the positive outcome? Well, nothing. It's what you just said. It's like, well, I'm only looking because they're looking at, well, my deadlift number isn't enough, or I'm not trim enough, or I'm not, and it's like, it's a negative feedback loop. And
it's all external. It's nothing. It's not internal. It's not coming from you.
You never feel good about yourself because someone's always telling you you're not good enough.
Yeah.
And grow up. Like I say that and it comes out of my mouth, and I know like I probably shouldn't say it like that, but it's like, fucking grow up. Like the fitness industry needs to grow the fuck up and have more adults in charge of, like with MOSSA, it's like, that's obviously a bunch of grown-ups that are acting like adults and saying, hey, this is what is going to work for the long term. Oh, by the way, you're going to be fitter than you've ever been in any other capacity. So some people need to just shut the fuck up and get in line and then realize that like the 20 years of childhood that put them in that mindset of my thighs are too big. I'm going to totally bag on that too, by the way, just until you get out of it.
Yeah.
Because it's the dumbest.
It's true. As I said, I was like,
right?
I don't know if I
but it's still
feel that way.
like,
it's in there.
It's like a a bad piece of code, and it's like, fuck, Windows won't open, and it's this one stupid thing that just once in a while cycles back around. You're like, oh damn it!
But at least you recognize it. Like that's the biggest thing, right?
Yes,
like
you're not
there it is.
it.
Okay, I said it again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shut it down.
How do I get past that?
Yeah. And is it holding you back, or is it just like, God damn, I shouldn't say that? And I do that all the time. I do that with my daughter, especially because she's 10. And the best thing, which I definitely wanted to talk to you guys about for sure, because we've all got girls.
Yeah.
When her first movie in the theater, I'm a horrible parent. Her first movie that's in the theater was Guardians of the Galaxy. Oh. Her favorite fucking character is Gamora and Nebula. Two badass women that beat the shit out of everybody and are super fucking fit, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like,
and mistreated by their dad. Pete.
Oh hey, yeah, Thanos,
So
that's a whole other thing. I am not.
You threw yourself into the button.
No. We've already covered this. Ryan is Thor. I am full on Star-Lord, snarky fucking asshole, and kind of get shit right sometimes by accident. But yeah, we've had this whole conversation. It's really bad.
The things they talk about when they work out.
I love this.
Funny.
But that's and then this is funny, but I actually cried when Wonder Woman came out, and there's a couple scenes in that with Gal Gadot in that movie where it's like, Gabby did. I mean, she was like empowered by it. Like, this is rad, but that's all she knows now is like, oh, women being fit and strong and kicking ass. That's fucking awesome. I'm sitting there like getting teary eyed. Like, this is the future my daughter gets to come up with, not the one that was the 80s fitness bunnies on a muscle and fitness cover, where they're supposed to be these, frail little thing. And fuck that. Yeah. Give me big quads, big, be strong, kick boys' ass, kick girls' ass. She loves to ride horses, so it's like, dude, she's already figured out the more she can deadlift and the stronger she is in here, the more cool shit she can do when she rides, because she's not deconditioned. She's so fit and strong, she can do more stuff faster, and it's more fun for a functional perspective of her doing more things. And it's like, if I can just keep doing it, but then at the same time, she's kind of on Instagram because she does like her horse stuff and all this kind of shit. If you give your child a device of any kind at any time, and there is a little bit of iPad babysitting that goes on, it inevitably crosses their feed. It's like somehow, some way, she'll come out of nowhere and be like, I wish my stomach was smaller. I'm like, fuck, I missed. I screwed up. I feel like so does Alyssa. And it's like, we're just like, God damn it. Like, you can't avoid it. Yeah. So it's like, to your thing, it's like, I know it's going to be in there, but have we done enough of the other stuff to be where it's like, I wish, yeah, sure, don't eat the third donut. Okay, fine, that's fine. But don't take it to the other end of the anorexia side where it's a food control mechanism to where it's like, I'm sad about whatever, I'm going to stop eating.
Yeah.
And I think it's the conversation. So when that comes up, at least for me with my girls, like when that comes up, because it's funny when they're younger, like middle school, I kind of felt like we were, okay, we're getting past it. They don't talk about it yet. Like
we did it.
Yeah. Well, and then inevitably one of them said it, and then the next one not too far after that said it, and then you start to realize that they're really aware of their bodies. They're aware of
other people's bodies, which is what they're comparing against.
Society too. I mean, like what's happening at high school, like who's dating who is because of XYZ, and like they all pick up on all of that. And I think it's just, again, acknowledging the conversation that they're saying that, like, oh, I wish my stomach was smaller. Why? Like, why is that? Why do you think that?
Yeah.
What would that do for you? What's the benefit of that?
Good. Yeah.
What is, and then see if they can actually, like, describe that to you, what that means. Or this is just, well, I don't really know. I just know that if my stomach's smaller, I'll look like that.
Right.
Well, then let's talk about your body. Start like what we're born with is, you have to, like, God gives everybody their body. You have to either love it or you don't. Like, you don't get a different one. Like, I'm not going to be taller. Lord knows I'd love to be taller.
Right. Yeah.
If I think really hard, I can not be 5'4".
Yeah. It just doesn't work, right? Or I don't know. I mean, it's so, and again, it's hard because I think it's not that they're never going to be, you can't ever shelter them. Like, they get to college too, they're on their own.
Yeah.
They're in sorority. I mean, it's just like Macy's at U of A right now, and she's loving it, and she's part of a sorority, and there's just so many things coming at her. And I just think keeping the conversation open so that they recognize when they say things like, I wish my thighs were smaller, I wish my stomach was smaller, why can't I have this, why can't I have that? It's like having them quantify, like, why are you saying that? What would that give you? And maybe they have an answer for that. I don't know, but at least it gets them talking. Like, why?
We can't ask the universe, we can't blame the universe for putting that messaging out there and expect that that's the solution. Like, if there's just no negative messaging, then my kid will be okay. It's never going to happen.
Right. It's not
so we
reality.
have to figure out how to take the tools like Kelly does, which is like break that apart and get to the root of it. And I would venture to say, because they grow up with Kelly, is that they have fewer of those voices and fewer of those thoughts than some other households, because they've grown up to know that your body is supposed to work for you. Food is supposed to taste good. It's supposed to be a reward, a treat, and fuel. Yeah, it's like all those things. And they see her, like little Macklin sees her all the time in this space and recognizes that that's a good thing and exposure. Whereas I think there was a time where the only visual messaging to women was don't sweat.
Thin as in.
Yeah. Like that tennis thing blows my mind. So
that blows my mind too. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it's heartbreaking, but like when Gabby, your daughter's, when Gabby gets those messages, she's going to have the tools to maybe let a little bit sink in, but then work through it and recognize, it's almost like you have to date a bad guy to know what a good guy is, And
I always say there's reasons for every relationship you have.
Yeah.
I always tell the girls, you're not going to marry these guys that you're dating right now. Yeah. I mean, the likelihood of that's very small.
Yeah.
But every relationship
Please
counts.
don't do that with the one that you're in. Right
Please
this
don't do
second,
that. Right
because
this
he's not awesome.
But every relationship matters because it teaches you something.
Yeah.
So it's like that. Every, thing that you wish you had and you don't have, you have to work through it so that you appreciate the things that you do have when you have them. I mean, it's...
Or you can identify what's a good thing as opposed to like miss the message. And that's the thing I always worry about with kids in general, especially right now. I mean, shit's weird. They're not in school, which it cuts both ways. Like, personally, I fucking hated school. Like, high school was shit. Like, I did not...
For you.
Yeah, social-wise was not awesome. I mean, it's not awesome to be outspoken when you're in high school and not a conformist. So I didn't drink, I didn't party. I love playing sports. We didn't really have video games and internet stuff like that. But it was like, I wasn't in the in crowd. And so, especially where I grew up here, if you're not in, you're definitely out. And there was not a lot of resources to see that there are other people on the planet that you can go gravitate towards, right? Yeah. And now it's kind of swung the other way because you've got kids that come up and maybe don't play any sports at all, but they got a great social circle because they all play Xbox or they're on, whatever, right? It make up the thing, whatever. I mean, we got, kids that train with other kids in the fitness realm that they don't play sport at all, but they like to be with their peer group because they all talk shit about, cyberpunk, or
something common.
Among Us,
common ground,
it's like, the commonality of something other than school where it's all just, mean girls and mean boys and bullshit. And it's tough because part of me is glad that Gabby's not having to go through some of that shit right now because she's, fourth grade, which isn't really real. Like, she had half of a third grade year, and when puberty hits, those little fuckers become assholes. It's like, and because it all hits at different times, it's like, oh, cool, you got some that are just like not even the same species, and then the others that are still little children. Yeah. And sometimes they just get run over. Yeah. And it's really hard to feel comfortable about that. Watching a child that you're responsible for. You've done it twice now. You've done it twice, and Gabby's 10, and you got Mac to do it again with. So, and of course it'll be perfect with her.
I don't know. I'm already messing up.
Everybody thinks that.
I forget.
Like
you forget.
The next kid. No, that's the thing.
Right? You forget. You're like, what did I do? How did I do that?
How did I end up in the same spot again? Fuck. Is it again? Damn
we're here again.
But it's that ecosystem has been kind of blown apart. Mm-hmm. It's exposing other things that, hey, they really do need to socialize. They need to have, but it needs to be a healthy community. Yeah. And I fear a little bit going back because kind of like with the vaccine, everybody's like, oh, the quarantine, the pandemic, this is going to be great. Everybody's going to be at home. They're going to get their shit together. They're going to be no alcohol. I'm like, have you lived with children and not have alcohol? Like, I don't know anybody that's not, but they're not, people aren't getting fitter as a whole. They're waiting for the vaccine to fix shit because they didn't want to do the hard thing, which is, presumptively wear a mask, be, personal space, all that kind of stuff. Looking for the easy out, and I worry that going back to school, we haven't learned a goddamn thing, and the kids are still going to be in the same kind of shitty ecosystem, going up through the same structure and same channels because nobody seems to want to do anything about it.
And in middle school, what you have coming up is it's odd,
awful.
Like it's
lots
just
of friction,
lots of friction, lots of friend stuff,
puberty,
lots of
non-puberty doesn't work.
And it's just an odd time. And I remember having that conversation with the girls. I'm like, this is just going to be a weird time for you. Your body's going to be weird. Yeah. You're gonna, things are going to change.
Grow at different rates.
I mean, and truly, especially too, for like, at least my girls, like they grew out and then they would grow up and then they would grow out and then so like constantly where with like even month to month where you're like, whoa, and even their mind's like, what happened?
They're like a lab experiment.
Like what is happening?
And then the friend dynamics on top of that, that's shifting.
Yeah.
However, I will say for us, our saving grace was always, I'm going to come back to it, sport.
Right.
Yeah.
It was this outlet where
Which they
it
also
wasn't.
can't do right now.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, if she can, like, I always feel we've been lucky. We've all my family of 4, we've all had this where we had school. Some of us had a sport in school, but we had something that wasn't school. So if your friend group wasn't working for you, or if you had a bad day there, you didn't go to practice with those same people.
Right.
Or if you did with school, it's a different dynamic.
Right.
And, what she said to this person, or who's dating whom, or whatever,
Doesn't matter on the field.
Doesn't matter.
Coach doesn't give a shit either.
Yeah. And it doesn't even have to be sport. It's, if it's piano lessons, if it's, music, if
Dance.
it's art, it's dance. Yeah.
Right.
Whatever it is, it's something that those things just don't measure as much.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just a saving grace if we can have that. But you're right. During a pandemic,
Well, then you have to
really
artificially
hard.
create it, right? And so, I mean, I cheated, just brought Gabby to the gym with me, because I own it. So it's like, cool. A lot of people don't have that option, or they're stuck in their house. It's like, well, okay, she can come down and, work out with the firefighters and see everybody, and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I'm like, I'm not going to force her to stay home. It's like, no, it's dumb.
Yeah.
And you guys, I know you did the same things because you've got those, you could say protocols, but those foundations established to where it's like, I know, I mean, especially during the first lockdown, especially when the weather was nice, watching Ryan run up and down that goddamn hill with the weight vest, and there's Mac out front, like, yeah, daddy, go. And there's Kelly, like, you're a fucking moron because you're going to go to walk tomorrow, but whatever,
Keep on going.
Keep going. You're doing great.
Yeah,
Good
keep
job,
going,
babe.
keep going. Awesome. Yep, good job. All right, I'll be on the couch by
That's amazing.
7:30.
Out
I
of
can turn on
bed. That's
Bachelor
right.
at 8, and we're done. But I mean, you utilize that tool in that tool belt to get to that point where, we got some psychological release for the kids. And
I just wish that, of course, I think it's so unfortunate that physical education is not, obviously, that's a whole realm, but that it's not such an important thing for kids going through school, because as we all know, even through this pandemic, if wellness has not been something that you think about, it should be now.
Yeah.
Like anytime, it's just so much that happened during the pandemic. And when you look at, I know there's the one-offs and there's people who've gotten really, really sick who are very, very healthy. And I totally, I'm not downplaying that at all, because I think, it's a sickness that can get anybody.
It's a real thing.
Right.
It's a real thing. But I think it does help you if you have good nutrition and you're moving your body, and wellness is important to you. Again, not to like aesthetically thinking, but just how healthy is my body. And I think that has to go down to our kids, because their mental stability is it's so unstable right now.
Right.
And we talk very, very openly in my house about mentally where they're at. And it's, some of the conversations are super hard, and it's like there's a lot of my friends are in this space, or, whatever. And I it's so hard at this age, because I'm constantly like, if you just go move your body 30 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
Just because, like, when, you exercise, endorphins are released, like it's just all of that natural dopamine hits. You will feel better.
Yeah.
But it's such a cycle.
Yeah.
Because they're tired. Yeah. And they're tired because they don't move.
It's that negative
but
feedback.
But they don't want to move because they're tired.
Yeah.
And it's just this, like, where you want to say, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And before pandemic, that's the thing that we have a hurdle, is that deconditioned person. They're living in that negative feedback loop. They've been living in that pandemic. Everything is hard. And I, for me, I've said this before, I try really hard to empathize. I can't, because even in pregnancy, I had easy pregnancies. I was able to move. But my small exposure to it, like, I took my 6 weeks off, as for me, I just needed to put a bubble, and starting again, even though it wasn't the same, I did understand the hurdle of starting again.
Right.
And that population, and it's like, if they're listening right now, I want to say, like, we understand it is so much easier, like the body at rest stays at rest, body in motion. It's so much easier if you're comfortable being sedentary. It's so hard to start.
Right.
Yeah. And it's like giving up smoking. You'll probably have multiple setbacks, but if you can just...
Or sidesteps.
That's probably a better way to put it.
Yeah, we talk about it as momentum. It's like momentum, once it's going, snowflake, snowball, avalanche, right? The one snowflake can't do shit.
Yeah.
You get a few of them, makes a little snowball. Oh, okay, it's starting to work. Then that snowball starts to roll. It's like, oh, it's picking up more snowflakes and more, and now you got an avalanche, and that's impossible to stop.
Yeah.
But it does eventually, and then it starts all over again. And it's a cycle. And creating momentum is, whether it's fitness or business, creating business momentum is really hard. Like, you need, that's why it's everybody that's a small business owner, or, as a agile business like you guys have, if they sat on their laurels, you wouldn't be sitting here right now repping MOSSA as your favorite company, because they wouldn't have made it through the pandemic because they weren't pushing and they weren't keeping that momentum, which takes effort. Yeah. It's a lot less effort to push a rolling car than it is to push one that isn't moving.
Right.
And it's hard to get people to understand that it's like, I compartmentalize stuff, right? So like if it's a long fucking 10K on the ski erg, just even saying it out loud is like
so long. Like that makes me sweat.
Ain't got time for that.
But like, Paul and I commit to doing our 5K, and I mean, your husband's the same. It's like none of us like duration-based cardio. Right. It's like that 6.5 hour run.
Yeah.
Ain't happening.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But if it was a challenge or it was a team thing, I can't run. But if we were doing a marathon on something, okay, do it, because you break it up into little bits. And I'm not doing one 10K. I'm doing 5 2Ks. And then within that 5 2Ks, I'm doing 10 1Ks. Yeah. And within that 1K, I'm breaking it into 200-meter chunks. I can't do the math past that because I'm out of fingers. But it's like, okay, it's not the whole thing. It's the one thing and it's the next thing. And as long as it's hard to get kids to understand this, that they're not setbacks they're only setbacks if you don't learn.
Right.
If you choose not to learn the lesson, because I learn more from stuff that I fuck up than I do the stuff I get right. Mainly because the stuff I get right, I don't take any credit for. I'm like, well, I'm less comfortable with it. But it's not a setback if you learn. If you learn, it's a sidestep. The smoking thing. It's like, what triggered your relapse? Say you're 70 days into no smoking, and then all of a sudden it's like, I got to burn a pack of heaters. What happened? Right. Just identify the thing, and it's okay, cool. You identified it. Right. Let's try for 71 days next time. Or alcohol's another one too. Yeah. Which is, it's funny because here we are sitting here on New Year's Day, 2021. What's your resolution? Not to do 2020 again. But everybody wants to start a New Year's resolution, and they're like, oh, I'm going to do this January 1. I'm like, and I hear this, there's some other guys that I listen to quite a bit, and they're right. It's like, well, if you're sitting there talking about your New Year's resolution in November, you ain't fucking doing it. Because why not just start today?
Yeah, what's different than 365 days? What's different?
Exactly. Nothing. It's an arbitrary date on the calendar based on a religious figure who died. Right. I mean, true. Okay, so if I'm, if I don't believe in Jesus and all that kind of stuff, the fucking date is literally irrelevant because we're billions of years into this thing and nobody knows what day it really is. But we're making it up. Right. So if we're going to make it up, we're going to celebrate and drink. Exactly. And if we're going to make up a structure, we might as well utilize that structure to our advantage, which is like, okay, cool. You got to start somewhere. Yeah. And if you're going to start today, great. Start today. Yeah. And then move forward through tomorrow. Yeah. Don't look at the next 30 days of I got to make it to this. No. Just make it to tomorrow. Yeah. Right. And like with your guys' classes and your structure and everything, it's like, find the thing that fits. And maybe you go 7 days of MOSSA and it's like, fuck, I suck at this. I don't like it. I can't imagine. But I mean, maybe that is. Maybe some people just don't like music. Yeah, and they're communists, whatever. But at least they tried. Yeah. Try the next thing. Yeah. Just don't stop trying. Right. And you'll find your community, you'll find your family. Yeah. And when you do that, you're lucky because you've earned it. But then if you got people that you're accountable towards, you're probably not going to let them down. Yeah. And if you can do that in your house, I think that's helpful too, because it's like, you're not going to let Ryan down, right? Because you two have a job. You're the coaches of that team. You're the parents, you're the adults most of the time, and you're running the shop, right? But then if the kids understand that and that mom had a bad day and your older daughters are old enough now to at least identify, all right, cool, we're going to cover Mac for a few minutes or a day or an hour or whatever, because mommy needs to take a minute and just sidestep and not, because you can't always be on, right? I'm sure it's the same with, your household. I mean, I see the commonality there of, we all play team sports, and that's a thing that starts when you're little. And how do you translate that into the adult world? It's like, if you're smart, you translate it everywhere. Right, in every aspect. I always tell my classes two things every time I teach. I always say, you did the hard part, you got here. Right. So now you might as well work. Yeah. I always say that. I'm like, the hard part was getting here, you did it, so let's work hard. And then at the very end, I always say, don't waste your workout. Like, when you leave today, you committed yourself to an hour, so make good food choices when you leave. Like, so good. I always say, don't waste your workout. Don't waste it, because that's literally a half a bag of baked chips. Like, don't, like, it's not worth it. Right. Like, don't do it. Like, so, and that's wait for something else. The substitution thing, right? And which, you were touching on that a little bit earlier of like, if I do this, then I get this, but if I do this, it's not worth this. And that conversation. So most of the time, my background with it, I hate food. My default mechanism is to not eat. Not because it's nowhere near like what you were going, whereas body image stuff. It's just like, I'm fucking tired. And and some of it's health history related with, it's just like you start working a bunch and you start withering away.
Yeah.
But then your appetite goes away.
Yeah.
You'll eat, but it's like I always eat breakfast. I never miss breakfast. But there's multiple days I can fuck whatever. I don't need dinner. I'm done. I'm just gonna go to bed.
Yeah.
And that's not really awesome for gaining muscle mass
Right.
at all.
Right.
Because food is fuel.
Right.
And if you've played sports of any caliber, you realize like if I eat like shit, I'm gonna perform like shit.
Yeah.
And I've always just kind of looked at food as fuel, and it's not really entertainment for me. I'm indifferent towards it, and it's annoying. If all the money in the world, professional chef.
Yeah.
Feed me.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about it.
I
Just
get that.
shove it in my face.
Yeah.
Not even think about it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a great way to look at it because it's just fuel, but I know for a lot of people it's an emotional control center and how to manipulate their emotions. And unfortunately that half a bag of chips or whatever it is, Diet Coke or which Diet Coke is crack in a can, and I love it, but I don't drink it every day because it's not good for me and it makes me fluffy. But it's an emotional thing, and it becomes a physiochemical addiction, and it's like, fuck, how do you get out of that? And
I think to realize that there's so many people in that space, because I would say I am a very emotional eater person. Like I'll have somebody come up
the grocery stores,
and you think the person next to you, like whoever you quote unquote want to be like, you also need to realize that they're having issues just like you do. Like there isn't anyone that doesn't have some type of battle that they're battling when it comes to health and wellness and fitness. Like it's just to your point of, snowflake, snowball, avalanche. Like you just know, okay, here's my hurdles are coming. How do I get past them? But I just got to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And I think talking to people and making it real, and because I'll talk to people sometimes about like even competing and all that, I'm like, it was so hard for me. Like that was so hard for me. The food side of it, because I do have a relationship with food that is very entertainment based. I mean, that's the way I grew up. I mean, our whole family, everything we did was huge events
Celebrate with food.
and celebrate
food and alcohol. Yeah.
Food and alcohol, which is what we did. So, and especially the sweet side of it. So that's a huge hurdle in our house that we have to constantly battle, because Ryan and I are both exactly the same. He's a sweet guy.
Yep.
I like sweets too. The girls.
He's a sweet guy.
He's a sweet guy most of the time. No, he's really sweet. But so I think it's just knowing that everybody's got a hurdle. Like it isn't easy for anyone. I think that's something that I didn't realize till I was older, because I would look at someone and always say like that, I wish I had her XYZ.
They're not dealing with this shit.
Yeah.
They don't have issues.
Just like looking at people's marriages.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, they're so happy all the time.
Totally. Yeah. And then it's an interesting concept to think about, that everybody's trying to look good for everyone else.
Right.
But kind of how freeing that is. That like, well, that's silly.
Right.
Well, then why does it matter? Like in that the way that you respond to what I say is actually your lens, not mine.
Right.
Like that's a big thing to learn too. And that can all tie back to exercise and the way you feel about walking into a room or just starting exercise, or, that everyone is battling at some point and no one has it all figured out.
Yeah.
But we just keep going.
Yeah. I'm that's interesting, because you guys are, as a self-proclaimed sweet person, right? Like you like sweets, right? Whatever candy, make it sugary, right? I'm not a huge sweet person, but oatmeal chocolate chip cookies, I like the whole fucking batch. Like, it's not even like, it's not even close. It's like, I mean, there might be stuff in the house, like my youngest stepson loves Starburst. Like I don't like candy.
I don't like that kind either. No, I don't either.
I don't like candy. You could put 10 pounds of it in front of me, or if it, on the a lot of people that are big into wine. I hate wine. I actually don't really like much alcohol at all. It just doesn't taste good. And quite frankly, if I'm gonna have 500 calories in a glass of wine or bottle or whatever, dude, I will swap that for cookies instantly. Or brownies. It's like, and not special brownies, like real brownies.
Brownies.
But it's weird because it's the same difference, right? Your mechanism is a whatever, cake. I don't know. I'm just making it up, but it's like mine's cookies. It's the same difference, same problem, but the same hurdles of like, didn't have dinner. I've got cookies right there. I got to eat something first before I have the cookies, because then I'll just fill up with cookies and I won't eat the good stuff. And it's like, no, you can still have all that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Especially tell the kids all the time, like, eat whatever you want. Most of the kids that train and you're on the seafood diet. You got so much hormone running through your system. If you seafood, eat it.
Right.
Shove it in your face because you need the fuel.
Right.
But get your minimums and your basics first. Yeah. And then if you want to go to Burgerville and have a double freaking cheeseburger, fries, and a shake at 10 o'clock, do it, because you're 16 and you're a thermonuclear furnace. Totally. We do that. And I know 50-years that are
then I just be a furnace.
But to the point, you're still a furnace, right? I know 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds that are way more jacked than I am, way better shape, because they train hard, and it's not that they're earning the food through the training. It's just that the food is irrelevant, because they continue, they never stop, and they keep pushing those they keep pushing those levels of achievement, barring any kind of injury. And I know you've been orthopedic. You've had some setbacks. Obviously, I'm a fucking dumpster fire. You gymnastics. I'm going to assume.
I had one major injury, and then I had.
What'd you do?
I had a open rupture dislocation on my elbow. So
nice,
big.
Yeah,
that was when I was 15.
Bone sticking out.
No, but it would be considered open because how far it was dislocated and the number of tissues that were broken and damaged.
Is this as a kid or
15?
In front of other kids?
Yep.
Did anybody
practice. Throw up? No.
Did you throw up?
No.
Good job.
It ballooned so fast.
Yeah.
Like once I saw the direction that my lower arm was pointing
Which
in
is
relationship.
The wrong direction.
Yes. It swelled really fast, and then my coach had me lie down. So So it was.
Lie down, feet up, don't move.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm really lucky that I haven't had a lot of injuries. I mean, multiple sprains and stuff like that. And then I have arthritis in my neck from gymnastics that didn't reveal itself until it acutely revealed itself in my late 30s. And it was definitely come to Jesus moment of, wow, this is what chronic pain feels like.
Yeah.
I remember that actually.
Yeah, it was so hard. But it also, again, like it's one of those experiences where I was like, I'll never look at somebody who complains about back pain the same way again. It just makes me so, again, empathy, relatability. And when you talk about like the food thing and what we're going through, there's two thoughts that came to mind. One, we do all have so much more in common than we don't.
Yeah.
Like, we have a mutual friend, her name's Kelly also, who used to say, everybody's got a story. So you think you know somebody when they walk into, your gym or whatever, the studio, and you assume things about them that aren't true. And it's more likely that we have things in common. We have injuries that we're contending with. We have self-esteem issues. But the food thing for me, because I had to work at it and learn about it, is that I had to recognize that food is sometimes fuel.
Yep.
Sometimes food is an expression of love. And it's big time that now. I've got a kid at college and I want to show him love. Yeah.
Yes.
And I want to show him love and my husband's the same. He's big in the kitchen. So one of the ways he expresses love is by creating a really beautiful meal, or so to recognize
the
presentation and then finding just what you like and, when you want it. And, and then also the flip side of that is if you abuse yourself with food, either by eating poorly or not eating, you're really showing self-loathing.
Right.
So to recognize that in fitness too, like why are we abusing ourselves by, hammer ourselves on a treadmill when we hate it?
Yeah.
Let's love ourselves and do something we enjoy that's good for us. Yep. And I will have the third donut, but I'll also recognize it's either because my satiety didn't kick in fast enough and I wanted the immediate sugar, and afterwards I've got stomach ache, or I was in a position of self-loathing at the time, and I decided that I'm not deserving of something good because I'm mad at myself because of XYZ. But it's a sidestep to your point.
Yeah.
And I think fitness can be the same way. I think it's really important that, we all know this. You know this because you built this beautiful space for people to come, and you just want to tell everybody in the world.
People built the space. I just happen to be here.
Well said. But I think one the commonality is we don't care if you get fitter. We want you to be happier and healthier, and we understand the walk that you've been through, because while we don't show it, we have had setbacks ourselves. We've been disappointed. I think that probably the most insecure person in the room is usually the person on the stage.
Usually.
And so, but they think we're not.
Yeah.
Fitness is an unfortunate consequence of positive choices. I'll tell people that all the time in here. I'm like, hey, you getting fitter is just a consequence, because consequences can be positive, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh, there's a consequence. And I'll, every once in a while you play that, like, hey, if you don't, because you try to get people, I don't give a fuck what the number is.
Yeah.
But I want 100% effort, right?
Yeah.
I want you to want to try hard, because, and especially being sports background, I have zero regrets of any game I ever played. Not one game, because I would literally break myself for the team, for the purpose, for the mission of moving forward and winning as a group, right? I never was like, I didn't try hard enough that game. I don't ever have any memory of that ever happening, because I just laid it all out every single time. Yeah. And the only regrets in the gym are when it's like, when you've like, fuck, I probably could have done one more. Or, you sometimes you need that friend there to be like, yo, homie, one more set.
Yeah.
One more interval. That just happened last night, as a matter of fact. It was like, the board said 5, you did 4.
Do one more.
That's not the same. Do one more. And you're not, because if you walk out and you quit, I mean, it's not quitting, but it's just like, you just don't have that same sense of achievement. It's like, no, I left something on the table, and I don't give it. Nobody's going to care.
And I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'd say only the person who knows you, that you're close to, knows that you had one more in you.
Yes.
Or knows that you actually shouldn't do the 5th because you've already showed.
You blasted it, and this is dangerous now, especially when it comes to like, with dance. And I'm not an expert, but I would assume that there's probably not very much you could do that you could physically harm yourself with a lift compared to something like, hey, I just PR'd my squat by 50 pounds. Let's add another 20. That might not be a good idea. You could actually injure yourself by breaking something.
Right. Yep.
And that's that fine line of, where it's, but why are you doing that 5th set? Is it ego? Okay. Is it self-abuse? Is it, am I going really hard on this treadmill because I've, ate 7 donuts? What's the mechanism for a lot of people? Sometimes it's just like, I'm mentally tired. Well, good. Then that's what a good coach or a good friend or a good training partner will be there to take over that role of, you don't get to decide for yourself. Just buckle up, cowboy. We're doing this 10 times, and then you don't have to, that mental fatigue. It's like, cool, I'll just do the thing.
Yeah.
See, I would have to do it because I would feel like I was cheating.
Yeah.
Same.
Like, I'd be like, it says 5, I have to do 5.
Right.
Even if I don't want to do 5, but I can still do it.
It says 5, you're going to do 6 because I know you. You're like, oh, well, that one wasn't. It's like, no, it's bullshit. You're going to do 6. Then you're the, I kind of get the sense it's like, you're the, let's throttle back. We're good. 8 sets of the thing that said 4 is fine.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's because it's fun. I mean, it's like you want to push and you want to go. And it's one of those things that's like, it's hard to get people to understand that, unless you're doing it for your business or your profession as far as numbers go, the numbers aren't relevant. The effort's what's relevant. And I mean, I don't think there's any, I'm a level 10 MOSSA dancer. I mean, I don't, there's no competition.
Right.
There's no scale, which can cut both ways because sometimes it's like, it happens a lot, in the, well, what's a good number for this? Well, what's a good number for you? Or what's a good number? Because there's Olympic athletes that lift and there's Olympic athletes that row. That's a good number.
Right.
Normal humans are not doing that shit, so it's like, where's your scale? What's
what's your perceived success of what you have? That's why sometimes the watches and all of that stuff is hard, I think, because people rely
wear
on
your
that.
Apple Watch.
I do wear my Apple Watch, but sometimes I'll look at it and realize like there's no way that that's what just happened. And it's interesting when the feeling that I get, like, or the feeling that I get if I don't have it on. And I feel like, oh, well, that workout didn't count. Like, and then how ridiculous that is. Yeah. Like, that's so ridiculous. Yeah. And then and a lot of times too, with like the MOSSA stuff, we try to coach the point of perceived success. Like, how are you feeling right now? What is your body feeling like? Trying to get people to be internal versus external, rely on external things to give them feedback, and I think it's so important that way you get to know your body so much better of like, man, I am really pushing right now today, or is my watch telling me that my heart rate's really high, but I don't feel that? Or, are you just relying on that? And even the feedback of, if it is really high, do you then instantly feel tired?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like, that's different.
Response.
Like, if that, but I didn't feel tired. If I can see my heart rate,
I all of a sudden have a higher respiratory rate because I'm having a little anxiety because, holy shit, I'm going to die.
Right. When that's probably not the case, and you're probably just fine.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Again, I like rabbit holes. Technology is a huge one for me. I am a Whoop convert. I love the Whoop, partly because I wake up every day, look at my respiratory rate, and I'm like, yes, I don't have corona. But there's so much data that for the lay person that is not a data junkie, way too much. It's like there's so much going on there that's like, just give me the report at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Or you hand it to somebody that knows what it is and they can help you. But for me, the data and the feedback are an interesting, it's a check system of, I feel like this, I'm producing this. What is my body doing? Like, where's my heart rate, especially heart rate? So, and I don't know if you guys do your programming based on any kind of like heart rate variability or any, but I mean, the interval training is heart rate variability training, which people don't quite, it's like the reason you're going up is so you get your heart rate up and then back down, then up and down. And the game, at least in the fitness spectrum, when you're utilizing that, is it's not about can you get your heart rate up as fast as possible? How quick can you recover to do it again?
Efficiency,
body efficiency.
And that's where I find that information extremely valuable, because it's not like an anxiety thing, like, oh shit, I'm at 179 beats a minute. I all of a sudden feel instantly tired because I just looked at my monitor. It's like, no, I know I can work at this at this rate for 4 minutes and produce whatever it's going to be, right? And then I can recover quickly and do it again, or 20 seconds or whatever. And getting people to understand how that data is useful and not negative. And fuck it, whatever. The one that I find the most negative, and I feel bad because I got friends that work there or whatever, but like Orange Theory gamifies it to where it's just more is better. 84 squat points or whatever, right? Doesn't have anything to do with what is proper. It has to do with more. And so I've been in a few times, and just like CrossFit, just like anything else, good coaches are good coaches regardless. They will make the program optimize. A bad coach and a bad system makes it worse.
Right.
And that system is built on more and more points and more this and more that. And so you go in there and actually Ryan and I have talked about this before with the rowing. It's like they might be at, 51 strokes a minute. And I'm going faster. It's like I'm just sitting there like 22 and like I just murdered you by like 6 minutes because you row like shit.
Yeah.
But they did more and their splat points were higher. But I finished. It's like what's really the purpose here? Is more better or more not? And are you guys both have Instagram?
Yeah.
For the audience, Instagram handles.
Yep.
Are they public?
Yes, but mine's very like it's
personal, right?
It's personal and a little fitness and a little bit of humor
and so we're all on Instagram. I hate Instagram, just to be clear. Like, I can't stand social media. But what is Instagram built on? More likes, more followers.
Right.
More. Not quality. I will take the whatever number of 1,000 followers you have as a higher quality than somebody that's got 1.2 million and is a shitbag. It's like that doesn't make it better just because they have more. The stuff you put out, the stuff we put out, it's quality. It's not splat points.
Yeah. The one thing about metrics I'll say though, and I think Orange Theory has a great model in that regard, is that there's also
I don't hate Orange Theory, just to be clear.
I know you don't. I know you don't. And you're saying you're recognizing the thing that people are wondering about, like what's the point of it?
Right.
Like why do we do that? And then there's a motivational scale that goes from I'm doing it. Well, first of all, there's the agnostic. I don't believe in this. This is not important. Right. It's not who I am. And then the
fitness agnostic.
Yeah,
that's a new term.
Yeah,
we're just adding that.
Yeah. There we go.
Awesome.
Well, and then
adding things in the dictionary.
Then it starts. One of the more basic levels of motivation is doing it because of a social norm, which is called framing. So you're doing it because this is perceived to be the right thing to do.
Right.
Smoking's cool. So framing makes smoking cool.
And in the 80s with everything on TV and movies, it was.
Right.
That's cool. Right.
So fitness is framed as an on-trend, cool, right thing to do. I'm a good person. People I relate to that I admire do that. So there's framing, so it's an external motivation. There's the external motivation of I'm doing it because my doctor said so. I'm doing it to avoid heart disease. So that's kind of like an external thing that's pretty far down. And then goal setting and metrics is on that continuum. What happens is once you've gotten the metrics, what happens is, and I think Kelly could speak to this, is the people that go to Orange Theory are not as concerned with the splat points anymore. That was the gateway drug.
Enough, right? Gotcha. That's the fix. That's the quick hit. That's
because
the entry.
You need that. Like those marginal gains, you do need some instant gratification to come from somewhere. And if you're starting, it's really hard to find that. If you can't do a single push-up or instant gratification, I can do a quarter push-up on my knees. But if you saw like that burned 2 calories or that got, your heart rate spiked this much, that is...
You did achieve something.
Yeah. Right. So I think that's I don't know, I haven't worked for them. I think that's part of it because I think the people who stay with it, that's like, oh, and P.S. I maybe have hit some new goals.
And it kind of changes when you do it. It's interesting. It gets to know you better. So the systems and the metrics actually change a little bit the more you do class. Which is crazy.
Kind of like My Zone used to, like originally that was their big thing. Was it?
And I think to your point too, Jake, when you were saying like it depends on the coach. So when I coached at Orange Theory too, when we were trained, it was more not about the splat points. It was about the mountain. So making sure that your aerobic zone was the highest. Your green zone actually was the highest point, then orange, and then red, right? So your anaerobic zone is your red zone that would be the lowest, but that you've got this nice mountain look at the end. So most of the time, if you look at somebody that has really, really high splat points, they would have an inverted hill opposite way.
Interesting.
And so you talk about it afterwards and you'd say, okay, so how do you feel right now? And then there's so many things that go into that, blood pressure, medication, like all those things that you have to ask all the people at the end. Because if someone's heart rate stays really low, but they're dying, it might be because they're on a blood thinner, or a beta blocker or something that where your heart rate's not, your heart rate's not going to get high. Like, and so it's that perceived. I used to always coach that about like, how do you feel right now? Don't even look at the screen. Like sometimes because people, but then the more and more they do it, to Charli's point too, like they get used to what it should be. And then there's a little bit of variability in the workouts depending on what the day is, but it should pretty consistently still be the same. So I think if they do focus on just splat points, they're not getting it right somewhere. They're not understanding what the real concept is of it. So that's why I always thought it was interesting we call it Orange Theory, because you really do, you actually want
being in the orange.
It's about being in the green, the aerobic zone, and then orange and then red. So it's kind of, this mountain look at the end, and that you do want your orange points to be up.
Yeah.
Because that's your fat burning. It's like aerobic fat burning and then anaerobic. And so all that's still good, but it's just, you don't want to have all anaerobic.
But even the nomenclature on there is like, what am I in? I'm in the fat burning zone. Okay. I'm going to get that 6-pack.
Yeah.
Whereas the
subtext,
coach the subtext is this is a healthy way to train, and this is the benefits of this type of training.
Exactly.
And that whole metrics kind of thing, it's like, if you are educated, what happens is, and Terry, president of MOSSA, would say this, is people use those numbers because when they like what they see.
Yeah,
sure.
If they don't like it, they cover it or ignore it. Like he would joke, like the people who use, some piece of data on their bike, they cover it with a towel if they don't like what they see. But you tend to use it because it's informative and you like what you see, and it validates the work that you did. Or you're really, really objective to it and can say, I actually need this information to help me with my very sophisticated training, and it's going to give me feedback.
Plan, program, or it's a test.
Which isn't very many people, but yeah.
The hard part is, and this again with my background, is, when this used to be called a technologic imperative, which is if offered a test in medicine, in healthcare, if offered a test, people say yes, even if they don't know what the results will be. Well, you're offering it to me. The information's available. Of course I want it. But what am I going to do with it? I don't know. But before you have the conversation of, do you want to look at your heart rate, ask yourself, what are you going to do with the information?
Right.
If it's going to be self-serving, if you're going to learn from it, if it's going to improve your training, do it. If you're just going to kick yourself in the ass to try to hit some number, or if it's going to be abusive to you, then why do it?
Another negative feedback.
And I have that like competitive nature, so I don't like that stuff, because that little beast that says,
that's your heroine. You're an addict. Is because you also work at Nike, right? Mm-hmm. And Nike had the Fuel Band for a hot minute, which is a really cool piece of tech, and then smartly sold off all that stuff in the IP to Apple, because that's what they actually do. And weird how that integrated.
Yeah.
But it's funny because the entire culture of Nike, I have a friend who's been there from kind of the beginning, and that it's a team, and it's a company that's a team, but it's a track team, and it's always about one position better, one position more. And when Ryan was at Spark, everything in Spark was developed around times and metrics and standards, and the Fuel Band. I love the Fuel Band. The Fuel Band was super cool. Like, it was probably too early for the market when it first came out, because it was people didn't have an Apple Watch yet, but I think it was one of those kind of like stepping stones to the Apple Watch, which then got us to the Whoop and everything, and MyZone and the heart, because back in the day, heart rate monitors were for cyclists. And marathon runners and polar chest strap, and then you had the monochrome watch if you were fancy, and it's like, ooh, look, it's in two-tone. But the entirety of Nike and that Fuel Band was built around the metricizing it. It's points, it's activity, it's movement, which is cool because they're measuring it for other purposes, inclusive of building better gear to go faster or do more, or the Metcon was developed that way. Like, okay, we got to build a whole new shoe because we suck at this side of the industry, and look, CrossFit is coming on strong, and more people are lifting and doing things that need a different shoe than the Nike Pegasus, right, or the Air Force One basketball shoe. They don't work for that, and so they developed product based off of that metrics. And then as soon as they basically got what they really needed, they dumped Fuel Band. Nike Digital went poof because most of those guys went to Apple. But they used it for that purpose, but other people were using it for, like you said, the purpose of like, oh, I got to get more, or this isn't good, or it's a negative loop, or I'm in the red and the bars and the cool little thing. And now you've got Apple, which you can wear it all day long, and it's telling you and showing you things all day long. But then what are you doing with it?
Or is it giving you misinformation?
That sometimes
I think
that's a good point.
Like, you just told me I burned 800 calories today. So I just think that maybe someone that doesn't have a ton of background might think, oh, well, I can add 800 calories to my food or whatever that is. Like, again, like, what does that information mean? I don't know, but I think it can misguide you too sometimes.
If you don't have the knowledge, then it's dangerous.
It can be really dangerous. Yeah, for sure. And I'll at the end too, I do have a fun little promo code that I'll put in. I can give to you, Jake, to put on kind of the thing.
Yes.
So with MOSSA, MOSSA On Demand gives you, there's always a 2 free week trial, 14 days. And then the little promo code will give you an extra 30. So you can have 45 free days to try it out.
See, that's smart.
If people want to
try it. It's kind of like the gym. People walk in the door, it's like, oh, I get a free class at whatever. I see that all the time. I'm like, I wonder what that gym really does, because if you try to do one thing one time, you're not going to get it. If it's a good place, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it.
Right.
You need to see what the progression is, right? And so it's like if they walk in the door, here in particular, you can get a week, because you need to see that Monday builds to Tuesday, builds to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the average person, is 4.5 days a week. That's not an accident. I'd be really interested to see, because we're definitely going to do this again, because you guys are fucking awesome. But I'd be really curious. I'd be really curious to see if MOSSA would let us talk about their again, nerd stats. Star Wars and Marvel references probably gave that away. But I'd be really curious to see what MOSSA's retention numbers are with regards to, now the online programming is interesting because it's a low barrier, and so a lot of those business models traditionally in other spheres are so low priced, people forget they have it and they don't cancel it.
Right.
But you can see the online participation. You can see the downloads. I'd be really, really curious to see what their retention rate is, because the way that is built, that whole ecosystem, and presuming big box gyms can open up again and we can go back to in-class and in-person stuff, I'm going to assume that the numbers there are probably pretty consistent, and the retention is more important than the new, because new is turnover and churn, and churn's not fun. Churn sucks.
It's expensive to acquire a consumer.
And I do know, like, our monthly rate it's like $9.99.
Right.
Like,
it's under that threshold.
It's
that's
ridiculous.
A science in and of itself.
Yeah.
Which is why people are freaking out, because they're like, is this going to crash their stock because it's getting too expensive? Where people are like, well, $20 a month, fuck that, I'm done. Like, but at $9.99, I forgot I had it.
Yeah.
It'd be awesome if we could find out from them if they listen to this and then, think that I'm an idiot. You guys can just do the next episode by yourself.
I don't know the specific numbers, but I do know that pre-COVID, the number we had and the number we have now, we've grown by over 600%. Which is insane.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Do you remember hearing that? Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
I knew it was something. I don't know the specific numbers of it, but I remember thinking like, oh.
And that,
I knew it'd grown, and you didn't know, like, because it could have gone the other way.
Yeah, it could have gone the other way.
Because what happened right at the drop of the, say when the bomb went off, right? It's like, what happened? Everybody that was in fitness started putting everything out for free. Yep. And good, bad, and ugly, it was white noise. There was a ton of it. And so the adaptation rate as a whole went way up, because everybody had nothing to do, and they were sitting there on social media and finding their stuff. But then the retention rate, and who really made this a principal point of their business, and you guys were diversified and stabled in the foundation to be like, cool, we can pivot into this, and who couldn't? CrossFit,
and then once everything hopefully eventually quote unquote opens back up, for whatever that means at whatever level, then I think it'll be even more interesting, because then because the classes are offered at gyms all across the country, the world really, that you could not only do it at home, but you can also do it at a gym too. So it's like you get both sides of that.
Yeah.
So that's really cool, because it doesn't change. And then we just got this really cool thing with our music company. So now all the music that we have these hour-long, because at first we just had 30-minute workouts.
Right?
Yeah. Now we have hour-long workouts. So a lot of our hour-long ones are like current songs that people know, but we just have a music company that creates them for us.
Okay.
And so the copyright, all the crazy stuff that's been going on with like Peloton, all that kind of stuff, we now have the rights to the music to use it. And that's just helped us grow tremendously, because because music is so important with what we do. Yeah. It has to be at the forefront. People have to know. Like, people love to, that's why our playlists are so diverse. You're going to hear hip hop, you're going to hear something from the 70s, you're going to hear, whatever, because it keeps everybody engaged, and there's a song for everybody in every single workout. So that's been really exciting. And that's been pretty new. So that's been
great.
Really fun.
And I think what happens is, what we know in the industry is that there's more retention in group training.
Yes.
So if you can get into that group experience, you're more likely to stick with it. But what happens sometimes is, let's say you're pregnant, or you move, or your job changes. Then it's sort of this all or none mentality, is if I can't get to the gym, then I can't do anything.
Right.
Well, guess what? With this sort of hybrid model, you can take Kelly's groove class, and then when you go on vacation, you don't have access to a gym, or when your job schedule changes or something and you can't make your twice a week or 4 times a week experience, you can actually have the same experience at home. And so I think the retention, I think that curve, or that I don't have my words, but I think we'll have more retention through the different modes of being able to do fitness, preferentially going to the gym. But if you can't, it's not like
bridging those gaps.
It's not like all or nothing.
So you're not stuck on the island. It's like, no, I can get back off and hop over. And it's a hard thing, because like, and I know that you guys kind of do it. I'm gonna assume that you'd probably do it too. But when we go, of course, we haven't been on vacation anywhere. But Alyssa and I we had our 10th anniversary last year. 2020 last year, February. And we've traveled further across the planet than I've ever been in my life. I don't know, 15 Valium to get on the plane and do it. Like it was all the way down to St. Kitts. And so it was like multiple flights. I don't like flying.
Oh, okay.
It's not so fun. So it was like, give me all the rhinoceros tranquilizer.
Big guy on drugs on a plane. That's always fun.
Yeah. And it was like, okay, but just to get there. But literally like one of the first things we did when it was like, okay, cool, that's where we're going. Where's the gym?
Yeah.
Where can I train that looks like what I like to do? Yeah. Not just in the, and I'm good with big box gyms too. Like I've, every once in a while, people will be like, oh, so you're a little guy, so you must hate the big box. I'm like, fuck no. When I go on vacation, if there's a Gold's Gym, I go there because it's like, it's literally like going to a Greatest Hits album.
Right, you're like, everything's there.
Everything's there, including the same bros that were there in the 80s. You know, it's like, this is fucking great. And it has a smell, and it's just like, But I'm not intimidated by that environment because that's what I grew up in with my parents, and it was never a big thing. But I can understand where they'd be like, oh, I'm going to go hide on the elliptical for 3 hours.
Yeah.
But the first thing we do is like, where are we going to work out? You know, because it's like, that's such a core component of what we do.
Yeah.
And even when we were down, you know, it's like we're swimming and hiking and doing all that kind of stuff and doing fitnessy things. But there were just certain days where it's like, hey, we need to like, I'm tired, I'm sore, my knee hurts or my back hurt, whatever. Yeah. Just go work out, you know, and go lift a little bit and do some fun stuff. And it's a thing. So I can see where MOSSA, you know, being smart is like, hey, there might not be a MOSSA studio down there, but you're going to be on vacation for 10 days. Cool. You can drop in and do a class online in your little hotel room or whatever, you know.
Yep. It's in the palm of your hand.
Yeah. It's there, and it's that family, that connection and community that, you know, you've got access to, even if it's not the same ones that you're doing it with in person, which I think is super cool.
That's cool.
Super, super cool.
Yeah.
So, dude, you guys crushed it.
Thanks. That was really fun. Thanks for having us.
Air high five.
Air high fives. Hey, elbows and all that fucking whatever. I'll just hold my breath and high five. Closing thoughts of any kind, or where can people find you?
Go ahead.
Okay,
spotlight
on Charli.
Okay, yeah. I don't wrap things up well, so
neither do I, which is why these tend to go like 2 hours.
So where they can right now, I'm teaching these formats at the Bay Club.
Okay,
and so you can find me there mostly early mornings
in the tent.
In the tent outside. Yeah. So 5:30 a.m. But I'm actually teaching. Thanks to COVID, I teach at 5 p.m. now too. I'm that early morning person, but that's where you can find me. I think I've said all my thoughts. I think I got them all out.
Said all the things.
Said all the
things. Said all the stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm at Bay Club as well. I teach pretty much midday, so I'll teach a cycling class, dance class, kind of back to back, Mondays and Wednesdays, and then I don't know. Closing thoughts. I think just make sure too that, you know, we talk a lot about like all the different programs, go and just finding something you love, but don't forget rest days. Like rest days and allowing your body to recover is so important. I think sometimes we just get lost in the more, whatever that is. We feel like more is better, and it isn't always.
Drive it till the wheels fall off.
Yeah. So just make sure you only have one body, recover it.
And how can they find you on MOSSA?
Rest
like
it.
With your classes.
So if you go to MOSSAondemand.net is the online platform. And then MOSSA.net is just our website of who we are as a company and what we do and what.
If you want to buy equipment.
Yeah, if you want to buy equipment too, you can buy the Viper on there. You can buy the Step, the barbells, some weights. I think we have everything's in. I don't think we're not like out of stock of anything, which is insane because everything's out of stock right now. But and really reasonably priced. And then it also like club locators. So like if you're in an area. And when gyms open and you want to find where MOSSA classes are, you just put the area you're in and it tells you what gyms in the area do live MOSSA classes.
And that's all in the MOSSA app.
And that's all on. That's on MOSSA.net. Okay. And then MOSSA On Demand.
MOSSA On Demand
is the online app.
That's the app. And
I'll give you the link.
That just launched, right?
The MOSSA On Demand, we just switched platforms a week ago, I think. Yep. And so now everything's up and it's awesome. That's super awesome.
Super cool.
Super cool. Super
very
awesome.
Excited. So I have one question from the audience.
Okay.
The audience being my wife
and
my mom.
Hi,
girls. At my wife's request, her hips don't lie. Shakira's hips don't lie. That's the dance question. Do the hips lie?
Nope.
They're still moving well.
Still moving well.
Yeah. Awesome. I feel great.
Consistency.
Yeah. Consistency.
And mixing it up.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Variability.
Awesome. You guys crushed it. This is
Thanks.
awesome.
It was super fun.
Yeah.
Yay. Totally.
Good work.
Awesome.
Right? See? Yay. That was fun, right?